Welcome to the May 21st meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll call to order, and we will start with our announcements. Stephen, I don't know if you have any, or Paul?
I just have one. The registrars will hold voter registration for the June meeting, for those who are not registered to vote already, until Wednesday night at 8 p.m. So that'll be the deadline for those who want to vote at the June annual election.
Okay, all right. And then, any other announcements? No? Okay, so we will go to the, well, this looks a little different here. So we have the annual board interviews. We'll go right to that next. So we can start to call folks up, and then we'll do our resident comments and select board comments. So I guess we'll start with the audit committee. Ernie Welker, who's an incumbent, if you can introduce yourself and tell us where you live. And
My name is Ernest Welker. I live at 243 Burbank Road. Been on the audit committee since the formation of the audit committee, and it's not 100 years ago.
okay,
So I've seen most of you for many years, and it's nice to be seen and to see you again.
all right.
I've had some health issues.
Okay, I think Mark is going to start the grilling.
No,
Yes.
I just want to know, on your application, you said one-year appointment. You've been doing this for a while, why?
Because if there were others that would like to get on the committee, I would be joyful in getting off the committee. I mean, it's been fun, but it's time for a change.
Okay, thank you.
That's also an associate member, right? Associate term?
Oh, there's
No,
one that
no.
expires 6/30/19,
Yeah.
a voting member.
It's a-
Voting
Oh,
member.
yep,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
I get it.
And so, well, in terms of the audit committee, we've just changed the auditors we're working with. And is
Yes.
that, you think, has that worked well from the committee? They have a good relationship with the new
There was a
auditors?
problem with the other auditor,
Mm-hmm,
so the change had to be made.
mm-hmm,
It's unusual for that to happen,
yeah,
but it worked out fine, put it that way.
oh, good. So the town is on the right track in terms of their approach to auditing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, what's your full title now, Paul? I don't want to diminish your title.
Finance director is fine.
Finance director.
Well, whatever it is, it's under his great care, and we appreciate, the audit committee appreciates his good suggestions and help.
Okay. Any other questions, or no? Well, thanks for coming in, and we'll let you know a few
Thank you.
weeks from now.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next we have a person for the Board of Assessors, Larry Rubin, who's an incumbent. You could introduce
I know you've
yourself.
never seen me before, but
Yeah, but,
Lawrence Rubin, 80 King Phillip. I presently am the chair of the Board of Assessors. I'll hold for applause. Okay? And if there are no further questions, have a good evening.
Mark,
Sure.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead.
So I'd like to hear from your side how we're doing with no principal assessor.
Phenomenal. The switch was made last year, and through the hard work of the committee and, Stephen and Paul, we went into a short-term contract with one vendor who, and it worked out great. The young lady in the office, Jessica Guerrera, she's phenomenal. She has knowledge, she's, a good fit in there, and she's able to pick up any slack that was left. The vendor, we went through one cycle of abatements with the vendor, and I think we, on all of, I think all, we never went to the tax board on any of the files. Everything was worked out in negotiating. We just went out, put out another contract for a longer term, and we are assessing the proposals now, and we'll probably be awarding on more of a long term. But in the form of missing a beat, I think we're doing phenomenal.
Thank you.
You got a great board, so
Thank you.
if I say so. Right, Carolyn? My other associate's right there. She can get an applause too. The other one is nowhere to be found. Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Nothing.
Okay, well,
That's
thank
it,
you.
huh?
Well, we'll have to
So I'll go
watch
home
that.
and sweat it out?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for coming in. Okay, and we move to the building committee. Mary Beth Morris.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
I'm Mary Beth Morris. I live at 44 Essex Court. I'm a 20-year resident of the town, but my involvement with the town is relatively new. I've only been participating in a voluntary capacity for a couple of years. I started on the town manager's task force for the new DPW, and then I was appointed by the board for the DPW building committee, and was excited to have that project finally advance after many years. Currently, I'm serving on the permanent building committee that was newly formed, I believe, last year. I'm serving as assistant chair, and it's been great, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that our senior or adult center project continues to move forward as well. So that's my quick intro, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, yeah.
I
Marie?
just want to say thank you. I know there's some very heavy projects that are coming down the road, and thank you for coming back on and continuing with it.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, and, yeah, well, great. Thanks for coming down.
Sure.
Not a lot of questions. Your resume says it all, so
All right, well, thank you very much for the
Okay.
opportunity.
All right.
See you soon.
we'll see you soon. All right. And then the Building Demolition Committee, Craig Carr was also an incumbent, is he? Am I reading this wrong? Are you,
Craig Carr.
you're Craig Carr?
I'm Craig Carr.
Oh, all right.
My mother had an interesting sense of humor. My middle name is Mason.
Okay, well, Craig, can you tell us?
Yes, I'm Craig Carr. I live at 397 Long Meadow Street. And I'm here for hopefully a renewal on the demolition committee.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
I know there's always a question about, do you meet once a year just to?
We meet
touch
once a year
base?
to keep ourselves current and on track. However, recently we've actually had a need to meet. So
But it's good to be at least once a year, touch base and get
yes,
minutes out there.
I
so-
think we have to by.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Now, are there any demolition projects that are on
That
the
are
board's
looming?
dealing with now? Or-
The only one that right now is possible is the old DPW building,
Okay.
which was at one point the train station, I guess.
Mhm.
And so we have looked at it, and of course the town hasn't vacated it yet, so we don't really know what the intent is.
Mhm. Okay. Well, great. Thanks for sharing that with us. If no other questions, we'll let you know in a few weeks. All right. Thanks for coming in, Craig. And now we have the Community Preservation Committee, Tim Casey and Sherry Knight. If you could, oh, sure. Tim, you want to, we'll do both of you at the same time. Yeah. You'll just have to share the microphone just for the viewing audience. We'll be able to hear you fine.
Sherry Knight. I live at 14 Falmouth Road. I've been on the Community Preservation Commission for 2 years now. The first year I was representing the Conservation Commission, and this past year I have been an at-large member, and I'm applying again for the at-large position.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Tim Casey. I live at 741 Laurel Street, and I am also applying for an at-large position. I am currently on the Historical Commission, and I've gotten involved with some of, actually, speaking of the old train station, one of the grants that had come up, and that kind of led me to apply for this committee because of all the great work they do. So I wanted to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any questions, Mark?
Yeah, I just kind of a general question for both of you. There was a ruling, I guess it was last fall or something, by the Supreme Judicial Court about the use of community preservation funds for, I guess it was religious issue items. I was wondering if you folks have had discussions about it at the, at the Community Preservation Commission or
We
committee.
have had discussions about it, and our chair has done a great job with keeping us all informed with what the rulings were, what the Supreme Court ruling was for the state, and what the ramifications would be for us.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and we've had the same discussions in the Historical Commission. Again, Steve Weiss, who's also on.
Right, he's our chair.
He's your chair. He's on our commission.
Mhm.
He's kept us very well informed on what it means and what it will mean going forward for a lot of the town's buildings
Great.
that may be used for religious services.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's 2 3-year terms that would expire in 2021. Are you both interested in the 3-year terms?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it'll be a fun committee to be on, because you'll get to vote on stuff, and then you'll see it actually happen, so. So, all right, any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
Should talk to Tim about the other committee while he's here.
Okay, the Conservation Commission, John Bresnahan. Huh? He'll be late, okay. So we have the Council of Aging Board of Directors, Francis Mifflin and John Bowen.
Should we go together?
Yeah, you can sit together, yeah. It's not a real competition, John, because there are 3 seats.
All right.
So it won't have to turn into a debate. If you could just introduce yourselves and where you live.
Sure, go ahead, yeah. You'll follow, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Fran Miffett. I live at 81 Nevins Avenue here in town, and I've lived there for 29 years. I've been on the Council on Aging for the past 3 years, and it has been a enormously challenging, exciting roller coaster for this past 3 years. And we're so excited with what's going on now. And but there's other things that we're doing too. We're doing a dementia project for town. We're also involved in eventually the AARP business of the aging community.
Mm-hmm.
I represent Greater Senior Services, I represent our Council on Aging with Greater Senior Services Board of Directors every month. And it's really great to bring back a lot of the information that's coming to the Greater Senior Services as the federal changes that are happening and how they're going to impact us down the line,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping people aware. And I guess I'd like to say that it's taught me a little bit, very little bit, about how town management runs.
Mhm.
And I would love to say that it's taught me patience, but I'm not all the way there yet.
No. Okay. Well, thanks, Francis. I know you guys have been patient with the
I'm sorry?
funding. You've been patient so far. You have to see with the vote, how the vote turns out. You'd be patient another couple more weeks.
Yeah.
And John?
I'm John Bowen. I live at 114 Emerson Road, Emerson Manor, a wonderful senior retirement community that is really to the credit of the town that it was built. Wonderful people there and a wonderful facility. I've been on the board, Council on Aging board for 6 years, and when I was chair 5 years ago, we came up with the new senior center idea and have been kicking it around for 5 years. We waited our turn until the DPW situation was resolved. We know we had to get in line. But now I hope we're at the front of the line, and I hope that we can proceed, since the town approved it with what looked like an 85% majority approval at the town meeting. And we hope the election on June 12th, the financial plan is approved. So we're ready to proceed. I would like to see it under construction and dedicated in my next term.
Okay.
In 3 years.
He was my mentor when I started.
As your renter. Okay, well, that's a good goal. Marie?
I'd just like to again say what you just said, which is even though town meeting voted on it, we still have to go to the ballot. So June 12th will be the final decision on whether we'll have the new adult center. So, cut out, huh?
We're working hard on that election.
Oh, yeah, we're, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
Any
thank you.
questions?
No, but it's nice to see that you are working on more than just the senior center. There's
Yes, I
a
know.
variety of
It
activities.
sometimes seems like it overwhelmed, but it didn't. I mean, we always had the other things, because the bottom line is, this is about seniors in our town. This is about aging, and the resources that are available, and making them available for people, making people know what's available, and to support that whole process. And age happens before you know it. It's amazing.
It does go quick. All right. well,
Watch us
thank-
get up and you'll see.
Speak for
right.
yourself.
Okay, and the Cultural Council, Thea Katsunakis. All right, Thea. So if you could just introduce yourself.
I'm Thea Katsanakis, and I live at 582 Williams Street.
Okay, so your interest in the Cultural Council, have you?
I am interested in that. I'm currently on the board at Storrs Library. I'm the clerk, and I recently retired from Bank of America, and in the trust area, and I handled a lot of grant-making accounts and was on grant-making committees. And I do a lot of volunteer work in the community. I'm on the Bay Path Alumni Council, and I do scholarship reviews for the Community Foundation of Western Mass. And I chair the Kiwanis Club Scholarship Committee, and I just thought Peg Landon invited me to a meeting and told me about the Cultural Council, and I thought it was something I would like to do.
Great. I hope it involves the mazurka and some good Greek food in the future, of course.
Mizuki.
Moussaka.
Yes.
Yes, Marie.
Well, those skills you're bringing to the table are wonderful, because I know that they get some grants, but they're looking for more grants, and there's so much they can do. So thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Any other? Okay, well, thanks for coming. We'll let you know. I know. Okay, in the Historic District Commission, there are 6 people, so we might just do 2 at a time. So the first would be Tim Casey and Melinda Cropsey. And now, Melinda, you're as an incumbent, and Tim, okay. You haven't been on this board?
No.
Okay, all right. So if you can just introduce yourselves.
I'm Melinda Cropsey, 862 Long Meadow Street. And I was appointed in February, and filling out a term that I gather expires at the end of June. And I'm just really, I thought it was just really here to just tell you that I still have a pulse, that I still have an interest, and I would love to continue to serve on the board.
Okay.
We've met several times, and unanimously had agreed at the last meeting not to comment on some of the, we've been working well as a team, and I'd love to keep involved as a member, so.
Okay, thank you. And Tim?
Tim Casey, 741 Laurel Street, and I've been on the Historical Commission, and I really enjoy history. And actually, I had some friends come from out of town. I actually took them through the historic district, and I think it's an important part of our town. It's an important thing to preserve, and I want to be a part of that.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Okay, so, well, I know that, the last time, we were interviewing quite a few people. There's 6 people tonight. We had 2 people the last meeting, and I believe we'll have a few more the next one. And so it's become a very popular board. And so, our main concern with all our boards is to make sure that they are functional and that, it meets the needs of the community. And so we have some guidelines, and but we will, it will be, there'll be a vote definitely on this one because there's so many folks. Okay. All right, well, I have no other questions, so thank you very much, and we'll get.
I guess I have
we'll
one
keep you
question.
posted.
Am I going to be voted on again, or is it just?
You'll be voted on.
Everyone
Yeah.
gets voted on. I know it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Serving on, I figured since.
Well, you served out that appointment, now it's a new appointment.
Yeah.
You were in a one-term, I guess, a one-year, filling in a one-year
It
appointment.
was 3 months.
Okay.
3 months.
It was my understanding that I was just coming tonight to just tell you I'm here and also to, re-up. So anyway,
Usually,
if
because
a-
there's usually not competition for it, but it looks like there's competition for a seat.
Yeah.
But so that's why it goes back to a vote again.
Yeah. Like, we usually have 2 people and 3 openings, but in this case, we have quite a bit. So, okay.
Sure,
So-
okay, because all right, I've done all the, AG training and everything else, so I'm.
Well, that's good to know.
Good
Oh,
to
good.
keep going if
All right.
you decide.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so next, we would have Carrie Greenman and Lori Hausman. If you're here. Okay. And,
Hi.
hi, you're
I'm
Lori,
Lori
right?
Hausman.
Yes, okay. And so I guess, well, we'll see if Carrie shows up, but if you could just introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm sorry. I'm Lori Hausman. I live at 796 Long Meadow Street. I'm relatively new to the community. I've been here for approaching 2 years. But I love Long Meadow. I love my neighborhood, and I would be honored to be appointed because I want to support it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yes.
Lori, only because you're new and there's a lot of people applying, can you just give us a little bit more on what you'd hope to do as part of this commission, or what you'd like to see done, or a little bit more, I'm trying to get a better sense of how to differentiate 10 applicants or whatever for 5 or 6 spots.
Sure. So there are several things that impress me about Long Meadow. One of them is how it's managed to nurture and capture the historic nature of the community, and I want to make sure that is maintained, but not in the sense of like keeping it same, but in the sense that it continues to grow and survive. I think that I bring a lot to the table, and that I have a law degree, and so I'm a practicing attorney, and so I'm able to read laws, I'm able to read statutes, I'm able to analyze them, I'm able to apply them. I think I could help give guidance to the committee. I think I wouldn't presuppose to think that I could lead a committee because I am new to the commission, but I think that I could be a valuable voice within it.
Thanks so much.
Does anyone
Any
else
other-
have questions?
I don't have anything.
Questions? No, I know that when the last issue that involved the Historic District Commission had to do with the Young Mansion, and you had come out against that project, and in going into this committee, would you be able to participate in a non-biased way if it came to decisions regarding that property?
Yes, I would. I mean, it is, decisions have been made. I mean, I don't think that there's an appeal process or an opportunity to change it. Not that I know as if I would want to do that, but I've accepted where it is. And I don't know what would exactly be coming before the commission, but I would enter it with an open mind and just, again, looking toward keeping the character of the historic district, help to guide it in its growth.
Okay. All right, thank you for answering that question. All right. So we'll be deciding, we'll let you know.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
And then we have Robert Clory and Robert McCulkey. All right, you can just, all right. Just introduce yourself and your address.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm Rob Corey. I live at 89 Longmeadow Street. I've been in Longmeadow about 5 years now, and I've really enjoyed the town and the people in it.
Okay.
I'm Robert Mulcahy. I live at 315 Longmeadow Street. I'm not in the historic district that's on the green.
Mhm.
I've been here about 7 years altogether. I was initially on Farmington Ave for 3 years and then moved to Ohio. And we came back in 2014. And I've owned a few historic homes. I was in the Forest Park Heights Historic District in Springfield.
Mhm.
Our first house in Longmeadow was built in 1923. At 1923, and then my current house was built in 1820. And I just love old houses. I think Longmeadow is beautiful. I'd like to be part of the process of preserving that. I just think the historic board would be a good fit for me.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from the board? Yes, Mark?
I'm just going to ask the
Yeah.
same question.
Yeah.
And Robert, okay, you just answered a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you could just give me a little bit more depth on what you're hoping to bring. And is 89 Longmeadow Street in the historic
No, sir.
district? Okay, I
The
just
other
wanted
route.
to.
Okay.
When I came to town, I went through I'm a political junkie. I love politics and reading about it. I saw the mansion. I went through the mansion and immediately got to my heart that this cannot be knocked down and it has to be preserved for this town. I'm originally from Torrington, Connecticut, and right next door to Torrington, Connecticut is Litchfield, Connecticut. And I don't know if you know much about it, but the entire town is an historic facility with houses that range from 1600s to the 1800s. The first law school was in Litchfield, Connecticut. So I grew up in that whole appreciation of architecture and history. My father was a violinist and a conductor, and he started the Torrington Civic Symphony, and because of that, I was throwing my allowance at Saving Carnegie Hall in New York City because my dad's like, you're 5, you don't need to give us money for the Saving Carnegie Hall. I go, you cannot knock that down for a parking lot. I mean, that's ridiculous. So the appreciation of the art, and to me, art and music are together. And living in this town for 5 years has been a tremendous honor. And I've lived all over Orange, Connecticut, Milford, Connecticut, and the coast. But there's a spirit here, and there's a beauty of this town that needs to be preserved. And I would do whatever I can to help the town and the commission.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything to your statement?
Okay, covered it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, great. So we'll let you guys know. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. So that's all our interviews for tonight. We'll have additional interviews next week. Deb, right? Is that, or in 2 weeks we'll have another,
Next meeting is the last interview section.
the last interview session of the last meeting? Okay.
The next meeting.
Next meeting. Yes, yeah, what you said.
Just, Tom, just
What
for
you
people who
said
haven't
is
been
correct.
through this before, you should know that the bylaws require that we not make appointments for at least 7 days, so there'll be no appointments made till our next meeting.
Right, well,
What?
We have
At the
another round of
earliest.
interviews.
At the earliest.
60 days, you have up to
Right.
60 days.
Right.
Most likely going to be the second meeting in
Oh, okay, because there's more interviews, okay. So,
18th.
okay.
it'll be a while. So we have to 60 days till the last person in the group is interviewed, so. Okay, and now resident comments. I don't know if we have any resident comments this evening. Please, step up.
Good evening. My name is Leo Milstein, 537 Williams Street, and I would like to bring to your attention events that may have kind of continuation in the town. On November Thanksgiving 2016, I was waked up with two employees of public work who shut down my water line to my house because of water popped up basically on the street. So 2 days later, on Monday, that pipeline was replaced by a contractor, and I'm an engineer. I spent 20 years working with pipelines, and when they pull this pipe out from under the ground, I immediately noticed that most possibly is electrical corrosion. I will not go to technicalities of this, but I start looking to the source of this corrosion, and I determined that the most possible one is the gas pipeline that crossing the water line along the curb of even side of the of William Street. So in addition to this kind of discovery, I knew that my neighbors had exactly the same broken water pipe right few months before me. So this is the 5 events, 3 sequence houses on the street had broken pipeline, service line during 1 calendar year. That is definitely, in my opinion, was not a coincidence. And in addition, when I start looking deeper into it, I found that another neighbor, a few houses before ours, at 397, had exactly same case just a few months before us. So it looks like that. 551, January 2016. 561 next to this house, August 2016. 397, it's the entrance to middle school from Williams, right over there. November 8, my 537 Williams Street, November 24th. And the most interesting case was 551 again in March, April 2017. So that was like chain of events. To confirm my suspicion about this event, I involved engineering company Kurt Friedman Engineering in Long Meadow, and we did confirm that this is the cause of this corrosion gas pipeline. So since then we had conversations with gas company, and my case is settled. They repaid me. They repaid half of our cost, of course, to my neighbors at 551, and they didn't pay them for first case, they paid them for second case. And right now, all other neighbors, one of whom is here, they already submit their claims. So I would like to bring your attention to kind of danger and kind of mass possibility of expansion of these events. So electrical corrosion damages the pipes by creating multiple small holes in it. It's like somebody drill holes but not through, and just looks like conical with the small hole in the end, and that only in the limited area of the pipe. So because we have sand basically on the ground, it's very absorbing, and that can continue for a very long time until it finally saturates the sand and area around this damaged area and pops up outside. Especially it's dangerous because if it's under the street, like happened in 397 case, it may wash out under the pavement materials, and in the end, some car or who walks, pedestrian can be actually just go into the sink. So this is one part of this. Second part of having this event, this damaged pipe with multiple holes in it works as a basically injection pump, so-called. If somebody know how to use garden hose to dry your flooded basement, that's what it is. You put tea and you put water through the hose and put small hose to the tea, and it will suck water from your basement outside by the water flow. In this case, water flow through this damaged pipe suck in whatever is around this pipe. It could be liquid, it could be sand. And later on, when I start analyzing what after event, I noticed, I recall that I noticed that water in my kitchen faucet start kind of losing volume. I checked filters on the hose, and it was clogged with micro particles of sand. So later on, I figured out that it was brought through that hose. I have these pipes from two events on my possession as evidence. Kurt Friedman and I, we created a case for court basically, but in this case, gas company, when it was called to the court, they back up, started negotiation, and we settled it without court. So that is about this leak. Now, town loses water through these leaks because it's not metered by us, by users. It's metered by the big meter that towns pay for. So town absorbs this money basically. We all absorb it, but it's on town. Plus, contamination could reach not only to my house, but it can go to the water main if flow goes in that direction. And when my all faucets in the house are closed, basically flow through the main creates a negative pressure in this piece of the pipe and sucks water. So theoretically, it's possibility for contamination of water in the main water main. So that's what I want to bring to your attention. I believe Ms. Angelidis is already familiar with the report that Kurt Friedman provided to you. So it gives you some technical details. Again, it's not fully detailed to technical level, but it's for common understanding of the process. That's about it.
Okay.
And
so people want
Go ahead,
ask some
Mark.
questions.
No, I just, normally we don't respond, and it's not a dialogue, but I just wanted to let, and I think Mr. Milstein may be aware of it, but Columbia Gas officials are here tonight. This is a topic that was going to come up, at least from my side. You may want to stick around and hear the discussion.
I know about that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to add one thing. Our water system's chlorinated to ward off any varmints that get in the lines, because any water leak could be subject to the same phenomena you're talking about, in a valve top, anything.
Absolutely.
And that's why we maintain 5 parts per million chlorine in water to keep it safe to the point of delivery. It's virtually impossible to have a sealed system, virtually impossible.
totally agree with you.
Okay. The other thing, too, I was wondering, what type of pipes you go back in? Did you go back in with non-corrosive pipes, or?
Yes, of course, I put copper. First of all, I
Well,
didn't know.
Copper
Yes.
can be exposed to electrolysis
It
and be.
can be
no.
again,
Yeah.
yes. And that's what happened with my next door neighbors. 1 year later, they had exactly the same
Mhm.
case again.
Right.
So if it's happened again with my pipe, which very possible, I would go with copper again. It's not my, let's say, put it softly, task to keep it safe. It's
I
a gas
would-
company.
I would
It's gas
recommend
company.
that at least you suggest going back with a non-corrosive type material pipe, because you can also have soil conditions and water that do the same phenomena that you're talking about.
With all respect to this suggestion, I still prefer to have a copper pipe against plastic one, for different reasons. And I can present you, it's like 48 feet of copper pipe between water main and shut-off valve on the property, and only about 1.5 feet, couple feet of pipe has a corrosion. Rest of the copper pipe sitting in the ground about 60 years looks like new.
Mhm.
So it's not ground or soil, as you mentioned in this particular case. It's a definitely specific type of corrosion that.
Right, I'm not gonna get into a debate with you,
Of
but
course,
I
no,
also
no.
have
I
uncovered
understand.
miles
I'm
of
just
pipe and have seen
explaining-
sections that are gone because of soil conditions, so you can't rule out. It
No.
may be electrolysis, and it sounds like it is, but there are other factors involved.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
agree with you totally. And in this particular area, salt from the street may add to this, because salted wet ground around the pipe
Hmm?
is better conductor than dry.
Right.
So electricity goes even better through this material than, so I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
well, thank
And
you for,
one
excuse me,
quick side note.
you're just gonna
This
give us,
document was provided to me by,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not document.
does this document have to do with your leak, your pipes?
Absolutely. So
Pipes.
this
Yeah,
set of papers was made,
Sure.
approach you?
Yeah.
this is to do with
This is what
the
I
properties
talk
that were
about.
affected?
Yeah, but this is what provided to me by water department.
Oh, okay.
That morning. But it should be a document, but I couldn't find any traces, even with help of Mr. Crane.
Mhm.
We couldn't find source of it. It does not have no signature, no name, no date on it. So it cannot be considered document in my unprofessional, in law opinion.
Okay, and this is entitled "The Rules and Regulations Concerning or Governing the Town of Long Meadow Public Water System," and it looks like it has a number of articles here. And
So if you don't
so,
have questions,
so what we'll do is we'll give these to Deb, and then you could share them with the committee.
thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right, and now we have a request from for Michelle Morantz, who's going to do a short 3-minute presentation concerning the Long Meadow to Preserve Pipeline and Awareness Group. And so, yeah.
If I speak loudly, is that going to blow out the equipment in the TV studio?
No.
Maybe at home, but not here.
All right.
They're
okay, fine.
working in there, they can adjust it.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Good evening. My name is Michelle Morantz, and I live at 117 Rugby Road in Long Meadow. I'm a member of a group of Long Meadow residents who have, for the last 3 months, searched in vain for answers to questions about Columbia's proposed Long Meadow pipeline reported in a Republican article last November. The fact that our town officials have received little information about the scope of this project prompted us to draw up a list of questions that was faxed to Columbia. Hopefully, we'll get answers tonight to at least some of these questions. It was my understanding that Columbia was going to be in the room, and they're obviously not, so Pardon the second
They
person.
are now.
that I-
Well, they're here. They're just-
Oh, okay,
their-
great.
Their timing is perfect. Okay.
Hopefully, we'll get answers tonight to at least some of these questions. At the heart of our concern is a fundamental one. Why are you expanding dangerous fossil fuel infrastructure in Long Meadow when our future as a Massachusetts green community requires our transition to renewables? Though gas has been framed by the gas industry as a clean fuel, we know that toxins like methane, radon, benzene, and lead are leaked from even new pipelines at every stage, from extraction to transmission to consumption. Significantly, just last Friday, Ann Berwick, former chair of the Department of Public Utilities, wrote in Commonwealth magazine that natural gas is not a clean fuel, citing its many problems. We've learned that more and more health studies are citing gas emissions as responsible for respiratory and neurological diseases. We're also aware that Springfield's air, historically rated F, recently earned a C- rating, largely due to Columbia Gas's repair of over 590 documented gas leaks in the city. We've seen Columbia's ongoing repair of Long Meadow's 90 gas leaks and appreciate the effort in making our air healthier. Where is the wisdom, then, of counteracting these measures by introducing more pipelines that will continue to threaten our health and the air we breathe? We're guessing that Columbia will say that present and future demands on our gas supply warrant the expansion. We respond by noting that Long Meadow's development is already at 97%, and that area communities are increasingly voting to become 100% sustainable, reducing their gas consumption in the process. Due to programs like Energy Save, Long Meadow's residents are making our homes more energy efficient, thereby reducing our reliance on fossil fuels. And with programs like Solarize Long Meadow, residents will have access to renewable energy to heat homes and produce electricity. One final comment regarding the questionable need for expanding gas infrastructure in Long Meadow has to mention the Global Warming Solutions Act, passed in 2008 and recently affirmed by the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. Under the mandates of this law, our state is required to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions according to the following benchmarks. By the year 2020, our emissions must be 25% below what they were in 1994. By the year 2050, our emissions must be 80% below what they were in 1994. It seems to me that law-abiding citizens of this state will need to aggressively move from fossil fuel usage and devote the next 5 years to complying with this law that says we have no alternative. We should not waste time and money on a project that will expand the harmful technology of the past. Instead, Long Meadow needs to focus on producing green energy for a green economy that will ensure our future health and the health of our planet.
Okay.
I was probably 20 seconds over 3 minutes.
That was very good. Well timed. Thank you. You must have been a teacher. Okay. Now, this isn't a question and answer,
Fine.
so if you could take your seat.
Thank
but,
you for taking the time to listen.
All right, thank you. So that will sort of guide us a little bit as our meeting continues. Next thing is select board comments. And I don't know if anyone has any comments.
I have one
Yes.
thing. Long Meadow Day is kind of a washout on Saturday, it looks like, but Sunday was good. But I commented to Tom. Tom did a nice job of representing the board at the Veterans meeting. He gave a wonderful speech. I sincerely mean that. It was point on for the event. It was a nice job. And at the end of the event, I was approached by one of our residents that, first of all, I tell you, she thanked me for running for the board. But in further, she went on and she watches many of our meetings, and she expressed her sincerest thanks to this group right here, this present group, for the work that they put in the meetings. Her and her husband are very much aware there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, because she watches enough meetings, she keeps current on the issues. So it's not often that we get a citizen that breaks away and comes up and says something nice. They don't hesitate to come up and tell you bad, but this was a nice venture, so it topped off my Sunday very nicely. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, well, I'm glad you appreciated it. They filmed the speech, so hopefully they'll put it on TV.
It wasn't that good, Tom.
I'd like to see it. But, okay, any other select board comments? Okay, so, well, we have time. At 8 PM, we have a utilities discussion.
Do you want to push the energy committee in there?
I think we should,
Just started early, yeah. I mean, it's not.
everybody's here.
Everyone's here, so if Columbia Gas and Eversource could come up, they speak one at a time, or do we have them?
Yeah. Do you need me to put the slides up, or do you have a computer?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just work on that. We'll have to pull up a few
Okay,
chairs.
now
John,
is,
can you slide down and maybe give them your chairs?
so who, is anyone going to sit here? Because they,
Yeah,
they have to be, you have to be mic'd in order for the viewing audience to hear. Yeah, if someone could sit there, and then,
Just two of us from Columbia.
okay, two of you from Columbia, and,
It'll be a handful.
okay. Eversource?
We don't have a presentation.
You don't have a presentation, so,
Yeah, well,
all right.
grab a couple of chairs.
I'll grab some chairs. So I imagine your presentation will, be helpful, because people are concerned about gas leaks, and I can imagine that's now, there was a list of questions that was given to the board for this meeting, and you may not be prepared to answer all of them. I know that we did our best to get them to you. But I think at this point, what might be the most useful thing to do with these questions is for me I'll just read the questions. If there's any that you can address, did you get a copy of these?
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
Tom, where did those questions, did anybody else get, I didn't get them, Bill didn't get them.
Those,
I didn't get them.
those were from the,
The pipeline awareness group.
But, so were they
So-
directed to us, though, to the select board?
They were,
directed to Columbia.
Oh, okay.
they're directed to Columbia,
So
not
we're
to
hearing
us.
them for the first time, too, just
So
so
we're
people
hearing
know.
them, yes, so, and then what we'll do is we can provide copies of these questions to the board.
Oh,
So, question number one is, will Columbia be seeking Mass Energy Facility Sitting Board approval for any of the part of the work in Long Meadow?
Tom, can I suggest that
Yes.
they give their presentation? I know I have questions, maybe others do before we get to those questions. You're the chair, you can do what you want to, but we got a lot going
Yeah,
on.
I don't,
If he reads the questions, it gives me time to get the presentation set up.
yeah, so he said in the presentation, it'll work out. And then, so they'll, it would give them a better sense of what the community's interested in. I-
Well, actually, let me just say, and this is the first I saw Mrs. Morantz's presentation, and it was a great presentation. To a large extent, I support it, but I'm not sure yet it's a community, it's what a group of citizens are thinking, and I think we ought to couch it that way. I personally agree with it, but I'm not sure it's the whole community, and I don't think
You're
we
right.
should present it that way.
Yes, it isn't the entire community. It is a portion of our community. And so, so number two is, what parts of the expansion project will be submitted to FERC approval or DPU approval? Number three, will Columbia and TGP comply with local zoning laws, or do they plan for a local zoning to be exempted or preempted? Number four, is any town-owned land involved? Number five, we have no reason to believe that the pipes in Long Meadow are approaching capacity. Is the project proposed to increase the amount of gas available to Long Meadow? Question six, how much of the work in Long Meadow would be putting in a new pipeline versus replacing old pipes? Number seven, what would the pressure of the new pipeline be, and how does that compare to the current pipeline in Long Meadow? Question eight, under the plan, TGP would build a new gate station. Where would that be located? Question nine, with respect to the Beaver Dam site on Bark Hall Road, how is the current station being impacted? Question 10, What other above-ground infrastructure is proposed? Are sites already selected and negotiated with landowners for the gas station, or for the gate station and other new infrastructure sites? Question 11, are there wetlands impact, and how does the company plan to seek to avoid, minimize, and mitigate them? Question 12, would raw gas be emitted into the air from any of these facilities through the building of a valve station or other facilities to regulate pressure? 13, what percentage of the gas traveling through this pipeline would be fracked gas? Question 14, would there be noise connected to the operation of any of these facilities or just construction itself? Question 15, what is your anticipated timeline for this project? Question 16, the Attorney General has expressed concerns with the plan for regular ratepayers to pay for this and Columbia's other proposed infrastructure expansion projects, and has suggested that the company's projections of increased gas demands are overblown. Would the company speak to that issue? Number 17, the Conservation Law Foundation has expressed concerns that the company is not doing all it can to help consumers save energy and money through its energy efficiency programs rather than building more gas infrastructure. How can we in Long Meadow, a designated green community, work with the company and the state to improve energy efficiency deployment? Number 18, we're almost there. How does this project interface with the decreased fossil fuel emission benchmarks mandated by the state's Global Warming Solutions Act of 2008? Number 19, won't Long Meadow and Springfield's proposed solarized program, if coupled with a Heat Smart program to encourage a conversion to efficient heat pumps, decrease the project's demand for gas? And number 20, Columbia has just filed with the DPU to increase customer rates. This is partly due to planned expansion, which we aren't convinced is necessary. What opportunities will our town and our residents have to participate in the rate case? So, you have gotten these questions, and I don't know if you have any response to the questions that you'd want to start with, or if you want to go right into your presentation and address these.
May I suggest this, that
Yeah.
we just talk a bit about what we're planning to do, and Mr. Mueller and I will be cognizant of the questions, and we'll try to work in responses to all of these questions, and would be happy to provide written responses following this meeting so that you have a comprehensive response to each question.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And then, so if you were going to give written responses, I guess you could send them to this board, and we would, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it on our website.
So you let us know how you would like us to do that. We'd be happy to.
No, sorry.
Okay.
We'll be.
Or should, because I don't know if it would, the other thing would be to, yeah, so why don't we plan on that? Why don't you get back to this board with those questions, and then
We'd be happy.
people can come to us. Okay, that'd be great.
I'm Steve Bryant. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of Columbia Gas. With
Okay.
me is Dave Mueller, who is the engineering manager for Columbia Gas and infinitely brighter than I, so
Okay,
capable of answering the technical questions.
great.
So generally, as an introduction, and I'm reluctant to start my conversation by making a comment counter to what I've heard here, but the infrastructure work that we're doing in Long Meadow is not related to expansion. Just to give you some concrete idea, we have approximately 5,100 customers in Long Meadow. I decided to look back at the history of growth in Long Meadow. We typically add 25 customers a year. not what I would suggest growth. We are a distribution company, and if a customer requests gas service, we have an obligation to provide it as long as the provision of that service does not impact either the operating quality or the cost to all other customers. I did not have the opportunity to go back and look at what those, where those 25 customers a year came from, but I would expect that many of them were oil to gas conversions, so that from an environmental perspective, that's generally a reduction of 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions as compared to oil, and probably better than that, since it probably was converted simultaneously with the upgrade and efficiency of the heating equipment. So again, the work that we're doing in Long Meadow is not related to expansion. It's related to, again, another comment I heard as I stepped into the room about the Global Warming Solutions Act. The work that we are doing is directly related to our obligations under that act. We have directive from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to reduce our emissions, and the methodology that we're using to reduce our emissions and the methodology that the DEP used to determine what our reduction in methane emissions was our proposal in the replacement of aging, leaking infrastructure. So this infrastructure replacement program in Long Meadow is related to the elimination of aging infrastructure, which is prone to leakage. We have been, and Mr. Mueller will show you a graphic in just a couple of minutes that makes it very clear that that we've been at it for a while. We've probably been replacing our aging infrastructure in Long Meadow probably systematically for about 25 years. We tried to do that opportunistically. That is, we tried to replace our pipes underneath a road that's being reconstructed by the town and resurfaced. We have infrastructure in the town. I think this is probably one of the most interesting things. We have infrastructure in the town that was installed in 1898. So it tells us something about the durability of the materials we use. Companies relied on cast iron originally. Just a very quick shot of history, originally natural gas delivered through interstate pipelines was not the origin of the company. The origin of the company was manufactured coal from heating coal in a retort device, forcing the gas off, and that's the origin of gas distribution companies. This company, probably in Long Meadow, the origin of the business was for street lighting. Fast forward to today, we're looking at gas distribution system. Our principal materials that we use are plastic pipe and something known as cathodically protected steel pipe. Those are the products we use to build out our current distribution system, far less prone to leak than the cast iron, which is the material that was installed in 1898, and something called non-cathodically protected or bare steel, which there's a fair amount of both bare steel and cast iron in Long Meadow. Our job, our responsibility under the Global Warming Solutions Act and the directive of the DEP is to replace that infrastructure. So if I might, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mueller, and if we could just take a couple of minutes and we'll give you an idea of what we're looking at in the town of Long Meadow.
All right, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I mean, you have a copy of this, so you're more than welcome to, to keep it and take a look at it. Just kind of give you a sense of what is in the town. There's about 88 miles of pipe total within the city of, or the town of Long Meadow. As Steve had mentioned, the two modern types of material is plastic and protected coated steel. And so, right now about, what does that work out to be? 67%, about 2/3 of that pipe is what we'd consider modern day, piping. The cast iron, the bare steel, that's the stuff that was installed in the 1800s, through, the early part of the 20th century. I think they stopped installing the cast iron probably in the 40s. Bare steel, we probably stopped installing that sometime in the 50s or 60s. So we've got roughly 29 miles of pipe left, which accounts for about a third. Just wanted to kind of give you a sense of how we've been accelerating our program, and Steve's absolutely correct. And I'll show you kind of a map here in a little bit, kind of give you an idea of where all this stuff is. We have been at this for well before 2005, trying to get rid of all of this stuff, and through a lot of effort, and the legislation that came out back in 2014, essentially allowed us to accelerate our replacement program. We've been ramping up since really the start in 2015 to where we are now in 2018. We're looking at roughly 16 miles of pipe that we're planning to retire in the next 5 years. So about half of the remaining amount of priority pipe left in Long Meadow is being planned for retirement in the next 5 years. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is that a big part of what we try to do is target the riskiest pieces of pipe, but I also want to really recognize the great relationship that we have with the operating staff in Long Meadow, and our ability to coordinate the replacement of a lot of these projects in conjunction with your infrastructure improvements, particularly paving improvements and those kinds of things. And we haven't always been able to do that. I think our programs have grown enough to the point where we're much more responsive, and that's going to result really much nicer end product with a lot less impact and interruption to the citizens of your town. So this is a map that shows where all of our existing priority pipe is. You can kind of see in that northwestern quadrant of the town, which I think is mostly residential. That's where the bulk of it is left. All of the stuff that's kind of in white, was either originally installed with plastic or cathodically protected steel, or has already been converted. So you can really see that for the most part, we're just kind of wrapping up the program, and that's really what our intent is, is to really try to close this thing out, to give you guys the best and most modern system with the fewest leaks and the least impact to the citizens, through disturbances of streets and basically improving public safety and environmental impacts as well. I'm not going to go through this. This is available to you. These are the planned projects that we have over the next few years. It kind of gives you an idea of where we're looking to work. But I think this, excuse me, this map here shows really, where we're looking to focus our projects over the next 5 years. The red being 2018, 19, I believe. Let me look. See if I can read that. 2018, that kind of a reddish color, and then I can't read it. It's a bit of an eye chart. I apologize, but you can kind of get an idea that, if you kind of remember back to this slide, where the bulk of the pipe is, by the time we get to the end of 2022, we're going to have cut into that, the remaining amount of that pipe, pretty effectively. So that's really the what I wanted to share with you, just to kind of give you an idea of what our plans look like over the next few years.
Okay. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Marie?
You were talking about your plan is moving forward to replace pipe. But one of the things you also have on your website is where the gas leaks are, which doesn't really overlay on this pattern. Are you I know you did a very aggressive program, I understand, in Springfield to try to cap those leaks. Are you doing that here, or is your program just to try to replace the pipe and hope to hit some of those leaks then? Or do you have a date in which you're hoping to finish all our leaks?
I'm sorry. We applied the same philosophy that we applied in Springfield. Let me just give you a little bit of history. I was contacted a while back by a group of environmentalists, first from Northampton, then a allied group in Springfield, discussing the impact of non-combusted methane as a potent greenhouse gas. And I'll admit it here because I've admitted it in public 10 times before. Something that I had not really thought a lot about from that point. Prior to that, I would think about methane leaks as risk to life and property, right? But not environmental impact. So we engaged in dialogue with those two environmental groups, as well as a group of environmental activists in Cambridge, and we came to institute a program to eliminate a portion of what I call that grade 3 leaks. Simple leak grading system is a grade 1 leak represents imminent risk to life and property. We'll repair it immediately when it's found. Grade 2 leaks are determined to not be risk to life and property, but should be repaired within a foreseeable time frame. And then this is the interesting one. In grade 3 leaks were intended to be monitored. That's the methodology that was used throughout the United States. That's the methodology that I grew up with. What we came to understand is through a study that was done by a couple of folks at Boston University, they made a determination in looking at a portion of National Grid's distribution system in Boston that a very small percentage of the total grade 3 leaks represented a very disproportionate amount of methane emissions. So we attempted to apply that that hypothesis to our own distribution system, and what we found is we proved that hypothesis. The same is true in our distribution system. So we undertook a strategy to identify the methodology to say that about 7%, to determine that about 7% of the grade 3 leaks represented 50% of the methane emission from grade 3 leaks. So we've engaged in a process to identify those large emitters and eliminate them as we find them. So we're continuing that program today. We typically, if we have a grade 2 leak, so that risk that leak that doesn't that we determine doesn't represent immediate risk to life and property, we either have to eliminate it when we find it through this program in the year that we find it, or we have to repair the leak. That's a bit different than the way leaks are handled in the rest of the United States. We have a shorter time frame. It's something that we work with, Columbia worked with the legislature to come up with an infrastructure replacement program and an aggressive grade 2 leak repair program. So we're required in Massachusetts to eliminate a grade 2 leak either through repair or replacement within 12 months. So to your question, any leaks, the grade 2 leaks that we have identified in Longmeadow will have to be eliminated this year.
But you were saying the grade 3, you're going to look for the higher level one, which could only be 7% of the grade 3 will be repaired.
That's correct. Although the intent here in the longer run is that as we eliminate this cast iron and bare steel infrastructure, in particular the cast iron infrastructure has a tendency to create small, and I want to emphasize small, grade 3 leaks, but nonetheless they're methane leaks. It's quite probable that we could do more harm to the environment trying to locate it and repair it than we might accomplish by eliminating it. But as you saw from Mr. Mueller's information, we are at the tail end of a long infrastructure replacement program in Longmeadow, and I would expect that by 2022, 2023, leaks will be very rare in the community.
One last follow-up question. So would we be able to get like an annual report on how successful you've been in taking care of 2 and 3 level leaks?
Yes,
Or
the information is public, but we would be happy to compose. We have communities that have asked us to provide specific information. We're happy to do that. And we're happy to come back every year and talk about our progress. I mean, it's, this is what we do. I'm honestly very proud of what we've accomplished. As I say, we went from I think a sort of run-of-the-mill, not giving a lot of thought to how we manage our distribution system, to in particular, over the last 7 or 8 years, really a real focus on the reduction of methane emissions and the installation of infrastructure that will not be prone to leak in the future.
Mark?
I have a series of questions too, but I just wanted to go back to something, Mr. Mueller, you said about the installation of cathodically protected steel pipes. We had I hope you heard one of our residents came forward and gave us the history of 4 houses almost consecutively in a street in our town that had what they believed to have been cathodically, what do they call it, immersive current cathodic degradation of the copper water pipe.
Okay.
And I know enough about the system to be the process to be dangerous, but I understand that it can happen and may in fact have happened. I'm wondering, what Columbia Gas is doing to prevent that from happening. We had literally 4 houses, in fact, one house, the report was happened twice, a couple of years apart. What's being done to, protect our copper water pipes that are coming from the street and crossing the Columbia Gas pipes, and how can we protect our citizens who now end up with water issues?
So basically, I don't know a lot of the details as to why those copper water pipes had failed. And we would certainly be more than happy to take the addresses and looking into that. In general, where we operate impressed corrosion protection systems, if there's any type of a contact between, physical contact between the copper, or any water line or any metallic line and our gas line, there's always that potential for that kind of stuff. We test our system through, there's a series of tests that you can make to determine, whether or not there's any type of faults in the systems and those kinds of things. I'd really have to go back and talk to our corrosion engineering staff to kind of get a better sense of what are they do, what is the cathodic protection systems in Long Meadow look like, and basically what kind of tests are they doing, and to answer your question specifically, how to what methodologies does he take to ensure that we're not damaging your own infrastructure.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
The claim this evening was that Columbia Gas reviewed it and actually paid a claim or more than one claim. So, and I don't know, Stephen, Mr. Ryan, if you know.
We were listening.
Okay.
And if you don't mind me just answering this question anecdotally, I was listening and I did comment to Mr. Mueller. I don't think I've heard of this happening 4 or 5 times in my career.
Yeah.
It's not to say that it hasn't happened more. Rather, what I'm saying is that it's an unusual circumstance, and it's not one that's likely to go undiagnosed, because a plumber who comes in and finds the circumstance is certainly going to tell the customer. If the plumber believes that's what happened to the water line, then the plumber is certainly going to notify the customer. Again, but we're happy to look into it. I don't know what the specifics of the circumstances are.
Well, if you can just send your contact information to the select board and town manager, I'm sure we're not going to solve this tonight. And that's
No.
But my intent is to make you aware that it's an issue. It's come up. Again, it's not, if it was one person, we'd say, yeah, you know, but we've got 4 consecutive houses, we've had it happen a couple of times. I think you ought to be aware of it, and I think that we'd be glad to share that with you.
we always want
I
to know about
appreciate
those kinds of
it.
things.
Okay, yeah,
And
so-
you
Certainly,
appreciate that a lot.
Yep.
certainly Mr. Crane knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, a couple other questions if I
Well,
could.
just, let me just,
Yeah.
Deb, the information that we received from the resident, does it have the addresses? The paperwork I just sent?
Yeah, it does.
If,
May I
I
just
can,
pass
so,
down?
take Tom, I have a copy of Kurt's report.
Right.
I can send it to them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great, so.
I
and
think
now
he
he
doesn't
has a-
mind.
Oh, wait,
I think there are also questions from the resident there that we could pass on, like we did with the other residents.
May I,
okay.
Mr. Friedman?
Deb, you.
Is it, oh,
wait.
then,
Hold on a
take
second.
that.
If we could just, if you could just hold on, sir, 1 second, we just, do you understand what she's requesting, Deb? The information, yeah, that part.
Not my meeting.
Yeah, so if you could pass that on, make copies to them.
I mean, I'm not
Is that what
trying to
you
turn
mean?
this into a solution of a unique problem. I just wanted to make sure you,
No. I just, again, we have
Okay.
315,000.
If we could just,
I get it.
if we could just hold on, if we could hold on one moment until, we'll just deal with one issue at a time, because I don't want to miss your conversation, and I just want to make sure that Deb knows what she's supposed to do. So these are the questions, and we have the addresses, so we'll, Stephen, make sure that you folks get those, and we're all set. And now, Mark, I know you had another question,
Yeah.
so please, I just want to hear what you're saying.
no, that's fine. No, again, I'm not trying to solve a problem, but it is a problem, more than one resident, so I want to do, we've heard a lot tonight from another group and about an expansion. Can you just let me, what is the relationship between Columbia Gas and Tennessee Gas Pipeline and the owners of the high-pressure pipe that come through the town of Long Meadow?
Sure, be happy to explain that. So Tennessee Gas Pipeline is an interstate pipeline company engaged in interstate commerce, and it is regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Tennessee Gas Pipeline's job is to move gas from the area in which natural gas is produced to areas where it's consumed. Columbia Gas is known as a local gas distribution company. It is state regulated, not engaged in interstate commerce, and our job is to move gas from the interstate pipeline to the ultimate consumer. It's a straightforward description.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we all heard that. The other question I have is about, there's a plethora of repairs, gas line replacements going on in our town at this time, and that's something that Mr. Mueller indicated to. I mean, driving home today, they were digging up Route 5, they're digging up Laurel Street, digging up William Street, all those kinds of things. Do you know how many crews are actually active in our town at this time, or how many will be active at any given time?
I don't. We operate about 60 contracted crews across our 65 cities and towns throughout the construction season. I can certainly find out for you how many crews we have at this time. And it's the type of circumstance where we could have contractors in Long Meadow now and may have no contractors in Long Meadow 2 months from now.
Right.
Often, we're always trying to time our projects so that we are in front of municipal street reconstruction. So drives probably two-thirds of the timing of our total construction program for pipe replacement is driven by municipal timing.
My observations, most of the construction over the last month or 6 weeks and ongoing is on our tree belts. We have some pretty wide tree belts, have not been digging up streets for the most part, right, Stephen?
Yeah, and I do think there are, some of the projects you saw are, if you look at next year's pavement management program.
Right, they're consistent with our pavement management program.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, the municipalities, and this municipality is one that prefers that we do our basic construction this year, do the proper compaction and resurfacing, and then let that overwinter is a very effective way to ensure that the that the ground has been properly restored before a municipality incurs a significant expense of doing resurfacing.
Yeah, and in fact, we have regulations, I guess, that prohibit tearing up streets within 2-3 years of after they're repaved. So I know, so we actually coordinate that. I guess the other comment I just wanted to make, if I could, is because it's come up in town forums and Facebook and things like that, is the storage of Columbia Gas equipment on nights and weekends. And I mean, one of our parks has pretty much been taken over by Columbia Gas. This weekend, you couldn't get into Bliss Park, part of Bliss Park, because of the number of Columbia Gas trucks. I'm just wondering, you know, I'm going to be sarcastic here, but is that your normal method of storing your trucks on our park grounds over the weekend, rather than have them, take them back to wherever Columbia stores their equipment?
Generally, we would prefer to leave the equipment where we're working. We do whatever it takes to complete the project. It's one of those judgment calls for the company in any municipality. Is there an advantage to hauling all the equipment away on a Friday night, or even hauling the equipment away every night in a busy town versus putting the equipment in a place where, at least we always hope, is not particularly inconvenient for the public until we complete our project.
Yeah, Stephen, do you know if the DPW or somebody's, you know, has approved the storage of that equipment and where it's been? I don't know if you've...
I'm going to guess I know the tree company was storing stuff down at Wolf Swamp parking lot. I think,
right, I saw that, but this is along Bliss Park.
I wasn't aware of that, but I will tell you that as a matter of practice, we do, when we're working with contractors, either gas contractors or our own, we will try and be accommodating for staging, because everyone has the same goal, which is get the job done as soon as possible. And we know from running our own work that mobilizing, demobilizing, remobilizing is time consuming and costly versus having everything right there. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to be flexible. But I wasn't aware that it was a disruption to the park. I mean, I think in advance of the lacrosse chamber, field hockey jamboree, we made sure all the tree company equipment was gone. So we do pay attention to, you know, what's being used and where. But we do that as not just as courtesy, but as a sense of partnership. I'll give you an example. Chandler Ave, we replaced the water main in Chandler Avenue, which is right across from. That's why there was all that bark mulch on the green for the Long Meadow days, because the grass didn't have time to grow where they, you know, were staging equipment and cutting the trench for the water main. Shortly before that, they knew we were going to be in there, and they replaced the gas main down Chandler Ave, and so they were staging equipment on the green, and we were as well. And it's, you know, a lot of our streets are so narrow that you have to, you know, partner on that.
Yeah, I just suggest that maybe we consider, you know, having them move it to the DPW, which is almost the same distance west as Bliss Park is east, or something like that. But anyway, it's been commented on, and people have noted the amount of equipment that's been stored in Bliss Park night after night and weekend after weekend.
A month or more.
All right, well, I would just say it definitely has to be a problem in this town. I'm a jogger, and I've run in cities all over. I mean, every time I'm there, I try to get a run in. I've never smelled gas except in this town. This is the only place I've ever run down the street and caught a whiff of gas, and I said, man, this is really bad. And I told the resident, so I mean, I think for me personally, that's significant, because I've done a lot of running, and this is the only place. So I'm glad that you're addressing that issue, because it, maybe it's the age of our pipes. And is there any coordination, I guess, between the town, so residents who smell gas leaks, I know they may call you, but I wonder, Stephen, do they contact the town also?
If they contact the town, we would give them their number, because they have the hotline for gas leaks.
Okay. And so people who smell gas leaks, the first thing is always to call the gas company, but should they secondarily call us so we are aware of where they are?
They can. I mean, we don't really, actually, I shouldn't say I don't know that we keep a list. The DPW and the gas company interact daily in terms of permitting trench work, permissions about staging, collaborating on schedules, things like that. So we can certainly transmit the information to Columbia Gas if we get it, but I think my gas bill says if you detect a leak, call it 800 something or other, and I think that's probably the way they prefer it.
Yeah.
That's probably the fastest response.
Well, some of the comments made by Michelle Morantz was regarding the health of smelling gas and how it affects air quality. And so does our Board of Health, would they need to be informed about
I don't think
leaks?
they're set up to do that right
No.
now. I mean, if you smell gas, you want to get it fixed, you got to call the gas company.
Right, yeah. Because I guess I'm just wondering how, like you said, it's only a small percentage that have large leaks. Most of them are very small. But, I don't know how that would be determined, and I don't know if the town would be aware of how much gas is leaking in a certain part of the neighborhood, a certain neighborhood on streets. So,
I mean,
we may have
the
to.
reality is, and we went through this, you weren't on the board, but we went through some of the Merriweather project.
Boy, did we.
Yeah, and that was a challenging one, but that was an example of, we had a complicated excavation, and there was a gas service main down the street that was right in the middle of all of it, and we detected that maybe the pipe was shifting a little bit in the excavation, even though the contractor was trying to brace it as much as possible. The gas company spent several nights, 24/7 there, monitoring it and making sure that, the neighborhood was safe and that the pipe got repaired in collaboration with us with the project. So the town doesn't independently detect gas leaks. They do that. So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but, like I said, if somebody called us and said, I smell gas, we would either say, here's the number, or we'll pass it along to Columbia Gas.
I might add that we would have to notify the Department of Public Works if we intended to excavate. We would excavate without getting a permit up front in an emergency, but otherwise, we're required to seek and secure a permit before we excavate.
Okay, Marie?
I had a couple more questions. One that brought up this whole thing about expansion of the pipeline was actually an article I read in the paper going back in December saying that you were considering building a valve station and that you've already started discussions with Longmeadow. Now, is there a valve station in planning on your website? I think there's some discussion of it.
So what we were seeking was, we had engaged Tennessee Gas Pipeline, the interstate pipeline company, to modify some of their facilities in order to recognize the changes in the dynamic of our distribution system, a shortage of ability to deliver gas into, in particular, Northampton and East Hampton, which is served off a long age lateral operated by Tennessee.
From us, from the pipeline that goes through Longmeadow, goes to Northampton.
Correct. So there's a lateral that comes off of that pipeline, comes off to Northampton. In those discussions, we also asked Tennessee if they would entertain installing a gate station in Longmeadow. The reason that we asked the question is that Longmeadow is at the end of a long trip from the Agawam gate, and since the pipeline is already in town, we asked Tennessee if they could, if they would entertain constructing a gate station that would give a second source of supply into Longmeadow. Currently, the gas flows from north to south, from Springfield into Longmeadow. I'm a big fan of, whenever it can be done economically, 2 sources of supply into a large area, and I consider 5,000 customers to be a large area. Beyond that, it's Tennessee who would engage and have to make the determination of where they could build the gate station. It's their interstate pipeline. That's an activity that's done by the interstate pipeline.
Okay, so you're asking them to build a gate station so that you can, right now the gas is going from Springfield down, and you want it to start going up. So does that talk about a new pipeline being built up Laurel or expansion of the size of it on Longmeadow Street?
Well,
If they build the gate station
If they
for you
build a
like you
gate
want.
station somewhere, we will need to connect, but, Mr. Mueller?
Initially, we were looking to connect about 4,000 or so feet from, depending on wherever the location is, you know, the final location will be, up to our into our existing distribution system
And the existing distribution system
within the city.
within the city of Springfield.
Right. No, within the city of
Long Meadow.
Yeah.
So would you have to build bigger pipelines to go north? Or are you talking expanding the size, or you're just talking about building 4,000 feet off of a gate station?
Well, I think ultimately what we want to do is be able to have gas flow through the middle of the city at a, so that we could take gas from the north or from the south from that gate station.
But what does that require?
That requires one, I guess it would require one piece of pipe as Mr. Mueller described, to connect that gate station into our existing distribution system.
Right.
Okay, so not the expansion of the size of the distribution, you just want the 4,000. Now, the gate station's not a pressure station, or is that another name for a pressure station?
Well, I'm not sure what a pressure station is. I mean, it's just, let me describe it this way. Interstate pipeline systems operate at much higher operating pressures than gas distribution companies do. So that pipeline that passes through Long Meadow operates at whatever the operating pressures are for interstate pipelines. We would, right at the interstate pipeline, we would drop the operating pressure down to what's considered to be normal operating pressures for gas distribution companies. We operate gas distribution. So, as I said, we have 65 cities and towns. Our gas distribution systems, what we call the backbone gas distribution system, operates at 200 pounds. How many Mr. Mueller, you know?
Yeah, so in the western part of Massachusetts, I think we operate like 50 miles of pipe that's right at or slightly above 200 pounds. And then in our northeastern region, I think there's like, gosh, I don't know, a couple thousand feet. It's not very much. And then essentially in our southeastern region, we operate a line that's probably about 15 miles long, I think, that operates, at or above 200 pounds.
So has Tennessee, or have you filed plans for this in Boston?
So all we have done to date is file for approval of a precedent agreement that we have signed with Tennessee. We have filed that with the Department of Public Utilities and are awaiting their decision. Beyond that, it depends what we would do next if a mass facility siting board filing would be required. The general rules for the mass facility siting board is if a distribution company, installs over a mile of pipe that operates at 100 pounds or greater, then the mass facility site, then the company's required to file application with the mass facility siting board.
Okay, so where's the 4,000 foot pipe? Do you have a plan for that? And where you want to lay that if they build the gate station, or where the gate station would be?
That's our dilemma at the moment.
Yeah.
We don't know where the gate station will be. So,
And that we'd have to find out from Tennessee where they're going to put it.
Sure. In Tennessee Tennessee really has the dilemma of waiting first for the Department of Public Utilities to determine if the Department of Public Utilities approves the basic agreement.
Oh, so we have to wait for that agreement that's been filed.
It's been filed. Discovery has taken place, hearings have taken place. We're awaiting an order at this point. Briefs have been filed, and we're awaiting an order.
Okay. And is it common for a town to be a party to that agreement?
You know, honestly,
Or to file as an interested party?
that would be, I have to say that I don't have, despite the fact that I have 40 years in the business, it's kind of it's a very rare circumstance to be looking for a change in the delivery configuration from an interstate pipeline. We did one in Lawrence 15 years ago, and I'm unaware in my pretty close to 20 years in Columbia, unaware of us doing any other one. Generally, they haven't in the past garnered a lot of specific interest, but I don't think the past is any indication of the present. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just have one more question, Tom.
Yes.
That's sort of off the topic a bit, and that is, with Mass Saves, we've been able to audit our buildings, and Columbia Gas has assisted us, and we appreciate that. But are there grants or a way of working with Columbia Gas in order to improve the insulation and the conservation of our buildings? Is there a second step that Columbia Gas works with communities on that in the municipal buildings?
Well, really, Mass Save is our agent, so when you had that work done in the municipal building, that's Columbia Gas utilizing an arrangement that all of the gas and electric distribution companies follow in Massachusetts. We would be happy to look at any and all buildings that we serve.
Well, they did, but I was wondering, are there grant availabilities to do the work now that we figured out what needs to be done to save on our energy costs?
So the calculation for the financial contribution of Columbia Gas is directly related to the amount saved. So we make contributions towards projects also, but it depends how much gas is saved. For a municipal building, it often, as far as we go, is to underwrite the study. Again, it's prescribed economics, prescribed by the Department of Public Utilities, really on an economic analysis. Will we get, for the amount of money that we put in, are we likely to get an appropriate level of savings?
Okay. So for me to understand this, that means when we have a series of projects that we see needs to be done, let's say on our public safety buildings, we go to you to see if there's any return, that you feel the return's strong enough to?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the Department of Public Works folks know our energy efficiency folks, so they would, in our.
They pick up the phone and they talk to you about it.
They do.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Richard.
I don't have a question that has anything to do with anything that's been talked about. I have a question that came up last week, but it is natural gas. I know we asked town manager if he could tell us what was going on Bliss or whatever, and he kind of had a blank stare and didn't know what you guys were doing. And what I'd like to get out on the table is if you've got a bunch of pipes sitting out on one of our roads and somebody wants to find out what's going on, who do they call? Do they call the town manager? Do they call you guys? Or where's the clearinghouse on the work that's being performed in our town?
You should call us, and we'd be happy to tell you what the project is. I do feel, though, that I think it's a weakness of ours that we should be posting right out on the job. 1-800-CALL us if you're wondering what's going on. It's very interesting that, again, the past is no indication of the present to the future. For a long, long time, we got very little interest in what we did. There is far more interest in it now. So we are planning to start posting all of our jobs with placards that have an 800 number that you could call. We also have the projects on our website, but it's not nearly as effective as I think we can make it. So it's an area for us to improve on.
Yeah, Stephen, I wonder if that's something that we could put on our website, just a blurb that tells just one more point of information, says, if you've got a question about a gas line installation, just call these guys and put just one more point of contact.
I would go one step further, if I may. I mean, I think the ideal would be for, if the town already has an effective website for its citizens, then I think the most effective thing for us to do is to make sure in a timely fashion we channel information to the municipal government so that if there's a construction project and it's irritating, it's getting in the way of citizens, they don't really care whether it's a water project or a gas project. They just want to know how long is it going to take and when are you going to get out of our way.
Or what is that gigantic pipe you just put in front of my house? What's going to happen with it? I'm getting ready to do my yard. Are you going through my yard or, you know? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mr. Mueller, if I could ask, I had not seen your presentation before. If you could just email that to Mr. Crane.
He's got it.
You have it now.
When did you see?
Just now.
Oh, just now? Okay.
When they sent it to me, it was marked draft.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure
So
they were
we
going to
do
bring a
have
different
Thank
one,
you.
so I didn't distribute it because and this is one of the reasons why I'm not jumping out in front of their projects. I'd rather have no information than give out bad information.
Oh, no, I just wanted to get that cleared up.
No, thanks.
But I just in terms of managing expectation of like explaining Columbia Gas or Eversource's projects through the DPW, I think because of the issuance of the trench permits has a good idea of what's going on. That doesn't always necessarily filter up to me, or it may be in the DPW monthly reports. It may not be.
I'll say this with a smile. Those of us on the inside know that you only know half of what you say you know. Okay.
You don't have to
I said it with a smile.
Okay, well, it seems like we've gone through our questions, and then Eversource, are they?
Sure. Eversource is here.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you. And the response to the questions, do you have a timeline on what that might take?
How about practically by the end of the week?
Oh, that's really good, thank you.
Thank you. We'll deliver those to Mr. Crane?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
The seats are nice and hot now.
No, what's there?
We were just getting warmed up.
Yes. You don't know.
Okay, so we welcome Eversource, and you can light us up with some...
Yeah, why don't we introduce ourselves first. I'm Mike Vitavelli. I'm with Community Relations at Eversource.
I'm Dolly Rona. I'm the account executive for Eversource for the town of Long Meadow.
Okay.
Iman Afnan, work in the engineering department for the Springfield Work Center.
All right.
So we don't have a presentation. We didn't get a pre-list of questions, so we'll try to assist and answer anything that we can, any questions that you may have. And what we cannot answer tonight, we will get follow-up question and answers for you.
We do have a very robust maintenance and inspection program, and I had talked to numerous people in the company, and I was amazed myself at how many people in our company in Connecticut and all over Western Mass are involved in the maintenance of our Long Meadow facilities.
Okay, I guess we'll start with the first light post. Mark.
How'd you know, Tom? I have two questions or two issues. The first one is, and I'll start with the easy one first. The first one is underground versus overhead wires. We constantly have, back 7 years ago, many of us lived through one of the worst issues we had here when we lost power for up to 8 days, depending on what part of the town it was, and we realized that we pride ourselves, we're a tree city, we pride ourselves on our trees, and we really like, to get the trees up there. We hate the trees that are cut around the wires, stuff like that. How would we move Eversource to, when it comes time to replace a wire, put it underground? I mean, to tell you, you need to move all your wires underground isn't going to happen. It's very expensive. But, we get these petitions, we need to replace a wire. You're going to do a wire. I know it's whatever the number was, twice as much, 3 times as much, put it underground as above ground. But if we started now, 30, 40 years from now, people are going to thank us because we're going to have a lot more wires underground. Short of having a municipal bylaw that says all our wires will be underground and then force you into doing it, how do we do this in a cooperative manner? Is there a method of methodology of doing that moving forward.
One thing I want to comment on is, have you considered the environmental impacts of having extra duck banks underground and the displacement of water as we're getting into floods and more difficulties with raising waters? But to answer your question, I believe that we would we would perform the work to put your services underground, but the cost would have to be borne by the town. Is that correct,
Well,
Iman? Is that your knowledge?
Well, but we're not saying take perfectly good wires and put them underground. When Eversource comes to us and say, we need to replace wires, we're going to start saying, if you need to replace them, the replacements are going to go underground. You're not doing it because we want them replaced. We're doing them because you want them to be replaced or upgraded or whatever it is. It's a fine line potentially here, but it's something that's come up over and over and over again. And the areas of our town that have underground wires are have better trees that aren't cut out, and and also when their power goes out, somebody does one thing one place, and 200 houses come on, as opposed to one house at a time as every branch took down a tree. It's just, I just wanted you to hear that, because I know we're not going to solve it, but it's on our minds and it's going to come up. And I know, I don't know if Mr. Armand been here, but I brought it up before when we need to replace a light pole, or Eversource needs a pole replacement. And we say the same thing to the Verizon too. So, so that, I just wanted to make that comment. But the real thing I wanted to talk to you about is streetlights.
I think we will need to bring that topic back to our operations and engineering folks and see how they comment on it.
Great, that'd be helpful. So, I don't even know where to start with streetlights, other than I guess my first question is, are you aware of the status of our desire with streetlights and what Eversource's response has been, and not just today's, but what it was 8 years ago, what it was 7 years ago, and kind of the history of the situation? From my perspective as an elected official in town, I'm kind of disappointed. If you don't know, I was the guy who went and testified at the DPUC hearing about the revaluation of the reclassification of the depreciation schedule for streetlights that caused our streetlights to go up. I don't know if the number is 50% or 80% or some very, very high percentage of increase in book value with no change to the streetlights. That was an overnight change based on depreciation schedules, something that's caused a lot of consternation on my part, because I think it's something that was done to try to counteract what I see as the rights of every town by state law to purchase their streetlights. We currently pay, give or take, and Paul Pasterzak, please correct me, about $475,000 a year in between leasing, renting, and electric costs for our streetlights. Only recently have we had a tariff that allows for charging us at a rate equivalent to what the actual streetlights are using would we put in LEDs. So prior to 6 months ago, we could have put in an LED light and we were still going to get charged for I don't know, sodium vapor or whatever the heck it is, because there was a dragging of feet on moving with a tariff for high efficiency lighting. So the economics that I've done says that there's the cost of Long Meadows right now is about $137,000 a year in electrical costs for our streetlights. And LEDs would, if you believe everything you read, take that down to 20% of that, right? Something like that. So it goes from $137,000 to maybe $25,000. There's a huge benefit to the town of Long Meadow. We're in a crisis for a lot of things, for taxes, for people paying too much taxes. There's $110,000 worth of electric bills out there ready to be grabbed. How do we take advantage of it with Eversource's help or potentially without Eversource's help? And that's, I guess, my question.
Let me address your first concern about the depreciation model and how that has changed, because I know it seems unfair and it's hard to
You bet it does,
explain.
yeah.
But what we did was, there's an awful lot of electrical infrastructure, and utility accounting is strange because we're not allowed to make up for all of the costs of our putting in the investment in our infrastructure with the rates over immediately. We have to wait over time and do it at the schedule the DPU allows us to recover the costs of our construction in. So what we did back in, I think it was 2010, when they moved the depreciation from one asset class to another, was they looked at the assets overall, and there was a lot of aging electrical infrastructure that had been replaced and is still on the books, and so they had to keep it in there because they hadn't been recovered in the rates, but they weren't there. So they moved things around, and it ended up going, the depreciation was reduced on the street light and moved toward another bucket so they could replace that infrastructure. And it did affect your cost of the net book value of the street lights.
From $400,000 to $730,000.
Yes, it
with
did.
no change to the equipment that was still, most of it's been up there since 1940s or 50s or 60s.
There's been some changes.
There's been a few, but for the most part,
As things are replaced,
we're way
we
up
have
there.
to put new, but the gross value is still the same on the books, and it was the subtraction that changed, as opposed to, we didn't throw more stuff on the books. It was the same.
And I understand that. You didn't throw more, it was a change in the depreciation schedule.
Right.
I get that. I'm an engineer. I got an MBA. I get all that stuff. But I'm telling you what the outcome is going to be, is we're going to go up to Eversource and we're just going to say, we don't want your lights anymore. Just take them out. So you can either sell them to us at a reasonable price or not sell them to us at all. And that becomes an Eversource decision at some point, because we've got vendors literally beating on our door saying, we'll sell you from the ground up, for $400,000 or $500,000 with, and you got yourself, the number I've got is a 4.5-year payback, and I'm going to share that with the select board, and all you have to do is tell Eversource, just take down all your equipment, we don't want it. Because that's where Eversource has put themselves, in a position that says, for $400,000, we probably buy it and then slowly evolve it into what we want. We change them out for LEDs and all this kind of stuff. But for $700,000, there's no way this town can afford or would pay for that.
I'm sorry to disagree with you, but I think that's a gross oversimplification, in that if we were to sell you the infrastructure, it does work out to be about $446 per light pole, or light, per unit.
Right. New
And
ones are
then-
$280. That's the quote we're getting.
Then if you were to, $280 for the pole and the
Fixture.
light
Yep.
and everything.
That's the quote we're getting, yep. Isn't that absurd?
It is absurd.
I know, and I didn't believe it either, but I got it from 2 different people.
But what about the labor costs? That's
No,
the part.
they're telling me that's all in. I mean, it's absurd, but they've got incentives and we've got incentives and we got state incentives. All I'm saying is that, and I'm not sitting here negotiating with you because this isn't the time or place to do that, but what Eversource has done is backed us into a situation where it makes zero sense for us to negotiate with Eversource for the purchase of streetlights at the price it's now on the books for. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think people are going to understand that.
Okay. Marie?
I noticed that Eversource, of course, is other states, and in New Hampshire, they've gone and they've actually partnered with cities, I think even Concord, to replace the streetlights with energy-efficient ones, and there's a grant program. Are you considering anything like that in Massachusetts? Because I haven't seen that yet.
Well, through the Department of Energy Resources, there are grants available for cities or towns that own their streetlights.
If they own them.
If they own them, yes.
Okay. But these were programs, I guess, so we have to buy them before we can even get into these programs, is that what you're saying?
We can help you with the energy efficiency
Efficiency,
money
yes.
if you buy them first.
Okay.
The labor, I do want to come back to that point because Eversource would be charging you abandonment fees for, and this is all by the DPU, it's regulated. We're not allowed to make one town take advantage of other towns as far as ratepayers go. So you would end up having to pay the abandonment fees and the labor charges associated with our coming to remove our electricity and then reconnect you. And I can't imagine that the labor charges would add up to less than if you bought this fixtures and then just change the head with an LED head.
Yeah, Marie?
I had another question that goes back to actually my time with Mark also. Back in 2011, we had a devastating problem in town with a leaking underground transformer. And I know you came and you worked on it, and it required a lot of work, and the neighborhood really was shut down from being able to use their streets for a long period of time. At that point in time, I had asked, that age of transformers, how many more do we have in town? And I understood we have several. And it was a very old transformer, just like Columbia Gas says, we have some very old gas equipment, we have old electrical. Is it possible for you to go test around these old transformers to make sure we're not having slow leakage around those also?
The inspections are done on a maintenance cycle. They were last done in 2016, and they're done, I believe, every 10 years.
For transformers, yes, every 10
For
years.
the underground transformers?
Right, and as far as the underground transformers go, there are 3 old ones in town that we suspect could possibly have PCB contamination out of the 68 transformers in town that are underground.
So there are 3 you're concerned about now through the testing?
We are a little bit concerned about, we don't test for them, we're allowed to assume that until something happens, we don't know that there's PCBs above the allowed limit.
So do you have the report from your testing on 2006? So you said you test them, but then you said you can't test them.
We don't test the oil in them because they're in service, so we
Okay.
go and we inspect them.
You inspect them?
Inspections happen every 10 years.
And there's only 3 that have PCPs, is that what you're saying?
3 that we suspect could, we don't know.
You don't know, because it's a sealed container?
Right.
Is that it? Okay. Is it possible to see the 2016 report?
I don't know if there's a report that exists. They know that the inspections are done by work request and that they're signed off, so I'm not sure if there was ever a report compiled, but I can ask that question.
Okay, thank you.
You don't have sample ports on those transformers?
Sample ports?
Sample ports for oil?
They're sealed, Rich, they're sealed.
Well, yeah, I know, well, I had sealed ones too, but I also had a port that came off where I could get an oil sample out. But you don't have them on these?
I'll ask, I don't.
No, I just,
know
you acted like you didn't, that's the reason I was wondering.
Oh, I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
And you never test the soil around to make sure there's no leakage?
They go in the vault and they look around.
Oh, they look around
it's
the
a
vault.
Yeah.
Visual
Okay.
inspection, yes.
So what we have here too is there's a listing of all the inspections that are done for every piece of equipment that we have. And this is approved by the Department of Public Utilities as to how we got to go about and do these inspections, when we have to do them, just to show you that there is, obviously a checks and balance on all of our equipment. I'd be happy to. I mean, the whole DP reports, this is just a 12 pages just on inspections, so I can give this to Mr. Crane, and he can distribute. So you're well aware of all the inspections that take place.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a real quick question, on the pits, you have secondary containment?
There's a couple of different style containers. There's a vault, they're concrete
Right.
vaults. And then the submersibles, what are they in?
They're also in the concrete.
They're in
encasement.
concrete.
Not secondary.
Is it secondary containment or
Well,
primary?
if you consider concrete another way to contain the oil, yes.
Yeah, usually I'm referring to a secondary containment system on top of a virgin system. It's not a containment system, but your other pad.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Now, this is, the issues of the streetlights, has been one that's come up for a long time, and obviously it's not going to go away. Doesn't sound like we've made any movement forward in our discussions today.
There was one, can I sneak another one in? Mark, did you ever get a decommissioning cost factor?
What do you mean by decommissioning?
Well, like we were talking for decommissioning the equipment out there from Eversource, what their charges are?
I have no idea. No, I don't know that we've ever gotten that. I know that from time to time, the select board has chosen to remove certain streetlights because people complain it's in our eyes and this kind of stuff, and Eversource just comes in and takes out that one or two streetlights when that happens. But I've never looked at the, I'll call mass decommissioning or abandonment.
Could you provide us something?
I can go back and get those figures. It will take some time to compile.
And we have a long time.
Okay. I also want to report that my boss got back to me today and told me that he had approval from upper management to do a 5-year phased sale.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens fairly recently is I met with Eversource to bang the drum on the streetlight issue again. And I threw all the ideas that you guys have just discussed at them. And they, the one that we saw some daylight of agreement on was perhaps a phased approach. Doesn't change the net book. The net book value is still what they're giving us. And they did say, I think they had, the abandonment in place strategy was tried, I think, in one of your service communities in Connecticut, and it was not accepted by the utility there. So that question had been asked before, and the utility did not agree to that. The benefit of the phased approach is you can appropriate funds through the annual budget, potentially, or using bond anticipation notes, greatly reducing the cost. And if you're able to purchase and convert, we have 1,448. If you did 140 a year, then you're starting to cash flow in year 2.
The savings.
And then and then it lowers your need to, and if you capitalize the next year's acquisition with the savings from the purchase and conversion, and it's probably not the next year, but maybe there's a little bit of a lag. By the end of the term, and actually they've run some numbers, you could end up having it so you don't really even have to borrow or not borrow very much to complete years 4 and 5. So that is something that has been with our, as you noted, Mark, with our financial situation. That's something that I think has appeal. As I noted to them, it's still tough to swallow the net book value and how artificial all of that is, but it's not going to change, and we just have to decide we're just going to turn the page. And like I said, I think this is a first. I mean, this is in all the years we've been talking about it, phasing has never been an option. It's take it all or leave it all, right now. And that, I think, is to me a game changer for our ability to do this. And we've been, like I said, talking to Eversource. Our streetlight article did not get, and it's partially my fault. A resident said that there are 17 companies that do these studies for free, but I should have gone up and noted only if you buy their lights.
Which, by the way, and then you should say, and in Massachusetts, if they do the study, you can't buy their lights.
Yeah,
by mass law.
right. So. What I should have noted is that funding it ourselves gives us the maximum amount of flexibility going into the future. I didn't find his argument that compelling, but town meeting did. However, as I noted, I think in an email, we still have our Green Communities grant, and I'm meeting with them on Thursday to talk about, since the DPW base bid included our zero net energy stuff, and we came in under budget of the project, we can then pivot away from that and look back at the streetlights. So all these kind of late-breaking pieces in the last month or so are all kind of falling into place, and I think, I feel renewed in terms of our ability to do this. And I'm glad to hear that Eversource is looking at a phased approach.
Okay, so Stephen, you've been trying to negotiate this phasing purchase for a while, right? I mean,
Yeah,
can you
we
get-
talked-
I
yeah, I
don't
mean,
give them credit if
6
they've
weeks.
been doing
Well, I
that.
mean, I think that they threw it out there first.
Okay.
Because I was once they threw it out there, I said that could potentially work, but I was still trying to find a different way to do it because I didn't want to buy. My goal is to not buy any equipment other than
Right.
LED streetlight heads.
Right, and so, but it, you know, it shows that your persistence, and the committees, but your persistence in meeting with them directly, there's been some result on that. And now, your understanding of this would also be that if we were to buy this 140 lights, then if we put LEDs in those lights, then we would also be able to have those metered because we own them, and we would reduce our costs?
Metering would increase the cost.
You don't meter them, you just do it based on tariffs. You
Yeah.
don't meter it.
So-
You just do it based on it's May 21st, there's 10 and a half hours of darkness, you use 8 watts of power, therefore your bill for tonight is so much money.
Okay.
And
So
that's
we
how
would-
tariffs work for
All right,
streetlights.
so in addition to the reduce in terms of what we pay for the $440,000, we'd also see a reduction in terms of the wattage, or in terms of the cost each time, so. And I guess I'd like to hear from our financial officer, Paul. I mean, have you had time to think much about this and crunch the numbers?
I have not really got into the details of it. I mean, just what was explained to utilize the savings from 1 year and keep on rolling it makes a lot of sense. From an appropriation standpoint, obviously, you wouldn't see the savings for a couple of years, but you wouldn't have the impact on your budget at the same time either.
Okay, that sounds good. I guess, well, before you guys go on, I guess I would just say my first impression of this is that this is significant progress, and I think that, you know, I'm not in business for a living, but I do recognize a good business deal, and this seems like something I would be supportive of continuing to move forward on. Marie? Yeah.
And Eversource just told us if we buy the lights, you're going to give us money to help buy the LEDs and everything else. So there's huge grant programs available for us.
Yes.
So.
We have an energy efficiency staff right in the Springfield Operations Center that would work hand in hand with you.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, a couple of things. So, Stephen, you've been working, and I appreciate what you've been doing. There are a couple other people who have been making some phone calls. David Miller sitting here, he came up, he found, or somebody found him, I think is a better way to put it, the best way to describe it is it's like net metering, that they do all the work, they own the streetlights, and they give you a percentage of the savings, and the town doesn't put up any money up front. You know, whether that works or not, you know, it's a very different model. It's out there on the internet. They claim all kinds of success, but it's something worth looking at. And then, you know, I'd been talking, and Stephen, we talked to this company, Tenco company. They came back with some estimates, and that, you know, they're just one of several companies that really make compelling arguments for us buying them all at once, bonding it, given the bonding power of the town, and what they sent me today is amazing because it's cash positive in year one, you know, growing, and after 10 years when much of the bonds paid off, it becomes largely. So I think the answer is there's 2 or 3 models out there that we owe it to the citizens of Longmeadow to look at and pick the best financial decision for the town. You know, there's a lot of money that's being used here between renting things that we can buy, and we know that it's cheaper to own it than buy it for the town of Longmeadow, and using LEDs instead of sodium vapor and, you know, all the other high wattage stuff that's being used, not to mention the people who come around telling us that we probably have too much light that's going up instead of going down, and you can really redesign for high efficiency. So, you know, we're going to be talking a little bit here about an energy committee, and I think it's important that we have a group of people who take it upon themselves to really look at these 2 or 3 options, because, you know, I can't sit here tonight and tell you which one. You know, I know which one I like, but I can't tell you it's the better decision for the town of Longmeadow, and ultimately we'll do what's best financially for the citizens of Long Meadow. And with all these different models coming at us, you know, it's going to be a you know, good economic analysis, Paul. And that's why I'm looking at Paul, because we're going to have to, you know, and like we did eventually with net metering that we have now, you know, that turned out for us to be a better deal than putting in a solar program, our own solar field, because of what it took to put in a solar field and interconnect the solar field and all that kind of stuff. We're getting a whole lot of benefit from doing nothing but signing a bunch of pieces of paper. And so, you know, I just encourage us to continue doing this, but we got to do something. I mean, we've been paying, you know, we got $400,000 or $500,000 a year flushing down the toilet as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and you know, as I say, you know, if we've been trying to get something like, you know, this buying it in phases to get accepted for a long time, it must be a good deal, or they would have said, they would have thrown it on the table a long time ago. So it sounds like it's something that can
I mean, if they
benefit
want to say
us.
that we came up with that here in Long Meadow and we're going to be the first, and I mean, I'll happily take it. I just don't think that that's probably the case.
Like I said, Stephen, I think, though, that there's an economic analysis that, you know, I mean, if bonding hasn't been a problem for the town of Long Meadow. I mean, think of what we did with our fiber optics system. We were paying rent and leasing from Verizon. We just said, look, we're going to put in a fiber optics system, and we're going to pay for it with, it was a good chunk of change when we put in our own fiber optics line, you know, but we paid for it in such a way that it was net flow positive right away, and so
I mean,
that's a great model for us.
But I think we don't know what the model is yet.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that the article that failed, I think we should still do it, even though we didn't get the appropriation for it. They didn't give us the money, but they didn't say you can't do the study. And I think that we should go back to Green Communities and use that, the Green Communities grant, to do exactly what you're talking about. And it'll be an audit of the existing equipment. I would like to get a photometric study of our town to find out,
right,
where are our streetlights? Are they in the right places? Are they on right now? How much light do they put off? Do we need to put back 1,448? And then what is an economic model that works for us with our, you know, bonding versus, you know, phase purchase and stuff like that? But I mean, I think we're talking months, not years.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm with you, Stephen. I agree that I don't have, even though I thought I knew the answer, I now know I don't know the answer, because there's so many potential answers out there. But there's one out there, and it's a good answer for the town.
Good. So I'd like to wrap up this discussion, but I do want to recognize Stephen Crane's efforts. No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that you came here with an additional offer to put on the table that we hadn't heard before. We thank you very much for your time and coming in, and hopefully we'll find a solution forward. Please.
I just want to add that the city of Springfield may be a good partner to discuss this with, because I know they're interested in the same thing, and the Green Communities Act money may be extended with a little political pressure.
So and thank you, Eli, for bringing that up. And I think I had noted on the board, I had engaged the mayor of West Springfield. They're interested in this as well, and I think, you know, if Eversource is kind of opening the gate to different options, where the partnership with West Springfield and Springfield works well for us is when we go to do a feasibility study or talk to one. I mean, we go to the MMA trade show, and you can't throw a rock in the air without hitting a streetlight vendor, and I'm a little more cynical of the vendors there than others, but I think that the buying power we'll have if it's a 3-community, especially if it's Springfield, West Springfield, going out to bid for either a total purchase, like the model that you said David found. Well, now you're talking real buying power. You're talking tens of thousands of lights instead of 1,400s of lights. So yes, I think that is something that's kind of our next phase, is to engage those communities and seeing if they want to do this jointly.
All right. Well, again, thank you for coming in, and
thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're ending this discussion happier than when we started it. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. Actually, give it. No, it's not.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Thank you very much.
We're not
Yes.
going to be long.
Mr. Bresnahan is here for the Energy Committee. We can.
No, I mean after him, my Energy Committee.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, we'll do Mr. Bresnahan first. You're here to interview for the
Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission.
Yes.
And so if you could just introduce yourself, your address.
John Bresnahan, 47 Falmouth Road. Apologize for being late this evening, and I'd like to reapply for Conservation Commission.
Okay, and now, has the commission been talking much about, what's happening down in the flats in terms of the Silvio Conti?
Yes, we've been very involved with Silvio Conti and the floodplain restoration down there.
Okay, and so is this going to be an exciting year to be on the commission?
3 years, exciting 3 years, a 3-year term, right?
You want to just keep going through the whole 3 years?
No, yes, I do. I think there's some
It's been-
exciting projects down on the riverfront that we can participate in or collaborate with Silvio Conti, and maybe even more options to explore.
Okay. What would you say has been the most rewarding experience for you personally being on the commission?
That's a great question. I think this past couple of years, seeing the progression of the Silvio Conti Wildlife Refuge on Fanny Stebbins has been very satisfying. I think they've done a great job down there in terms of developing a plan for restoration and invasive species management down there that maybe we could also, as you mentioned, piggyback on the next couple of years. And then just a general working within the Wetland Protection Act and protecting the wetland resources within the town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that's what. Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay. Well, you come experienced, and we'll make a decision. We'll let you know. But thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you, and I apologize again for being late.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Make adjustments. All right. So you'd like to move the Energy Committee?
Yes, if I could.
If we can move them up, all right?
They've been waiting a very long time.
Please join us and just introduce yourself.
I'll kick things off. My name is David Miller. I live at 68 East Greenwich Road. We're going to talk a little bit and very briefly, because the hour is late, about energy audits. 4 or 5 months ago now, we began a process of looking at our town buildings to find out whether there is money to be saved with a smaller investment. And I hope to be able to answer Ms. Angelides' question earlier. There is a program that's very much like the Mass Save program that we use for our residential facilities for the town, and that is under the aegis of Columbia Gas. They contract with a company called Rise Engineering, which is out of Providence, Rhode Island, to do an assessment of the town buildings, which is free, funded, I'm sure, by a stipend that we all pay, or the facilities pay for their gas. And also, perhaps, I think there is some money that flows to this from the Northeast Regional Greenhouse Gas Consortium. But in any event, to make things brief, we've now had all of the buildings assessed partially. I can report on 5 buildings, and what I'd like to do is just tell you how much money it would cost the town for some improvements, what the payback period would be, and how much money Columbia Gas has to put into the pot. So for those 5 buildings, which would be the old town hall, the community house, the senior center, and the fire station, and the library, with the library being exempted because, in fact, there's no significant changes that can be made to the library that are cost efficient. So there's nothing that can be done in the library. So for the other 4, there are some changes that can be made. The total cost to the town would be $18,000. Columbia Gas kicks in roughly twice that, so $36,000. And the payback period, on average, is about 4 or 4.5 years. So what I'd like to do is take just one of the facilities, which quite amazingly is the most recently constructed, the fire station, and go through that very briefly. In the fire station, the heat index is 0.53.
The heat index is nothing more than the number of therms that are consumed during the course of the year divided by the square footage of the facility. Anything between 0.25 and 0.75 is considered to be acceptable in New England. So the closer you are to 0.25, the better you are to a highly efficient building. So the fire station at 0.53 is right in the middle, but obviously some room for improvement. So what can be done there is, number one, attic insulation. Currently, there's 6 inches of batt there. They would propose increasing that significantly to R49, which is the current recommendation. They also propose some air sealing, and the composition of this would be for the air sealing, it would cost a total of $9,000. The town would assume $2,900 of that, the balance by the utility. The payback is 3.1 years. So the point is, the payback for the town, not for the whole cost. So the town gets their money back in 3 years, and thereafter we're making money, if you will, by the savings that we have by putting that insulation in. The other is, the air sealing. The other is the insulation. That's a total of $24,000. The town pays $7,000, and the utility pays $16,000. The payback is 4.7 years. So I don't want to go through all of the buildings, but I'm just giving you this information to suggest that I think that there are going to be some significant savings that can be made with modest investment as the other information comes in on the Columbia Gas audit. Secondly, we have an audit done for the electrical services, and that's done by a local agency. A gentleman by the name of Joe Robinson should be contacting Stephen to try and set up a time to discuss their findings and give him an idea of the extent of the project. So that's what I have to say about audits, and I'd entertain any questions if there are any.
Okay, Mark?
Actually, it's a question for Paul. Paul, about, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago, we did some audits. It was the electrical company came in and we did audit. That's when we replaced the light switches and the ballasts and all that kind of stuff. And it was going to come off of our electric bill, right? We were going to pay for it through our electric bill, pay the capital, but the savings were going to be such that we had kind of. Has that all finished off? And has anybody looked at our electric bills lately to see if?
I have not analyzed, the material effect of those savings.
Well, I will assume that they were correct.
All the work has been done.
No, but I mean, are we done with those payment,
Are we still paying the surcharges?
Yes, we are done making all those payments.
Okay, so we got to assume that we did this iteration through the electric company a few years ago, and now it may be time. I mean, that's when we were going literally from incandescent bulbs to fluorescent bulbs, not even compact, and now you probably do the same thing and switch to LEDs and save even another.
That's exactly
10%, 90%.
And they offer, I believe, the same process of funding it. They obviously have a number of different ways to do it, but that's one.
Okay.
Current standards are 49 for attics.
That's right.
Wow, I didn't know it got that high. What about the heating systems?
The heating system, for example, at the Storrs Library is almost 30 years old, and he suggests that that should be looked at soon as a replacement, and he recommends a very high efficient, 98% efficient system.
Soon would have been about 10 years ago.
So he's looked at all of the heating systems.
Yeah.
That was the only one, I believe, of these 5 buildings that he's commented on. All the schools are in the process of being looked at. We're a little delayed there because obviously it's difficult for them to look at the schools when the schools are in session, so we tried to do this during vacation. At Wolf Swamp and at Blueberry Hill, he believes there is a significant issue where the walls meet the ceilings, where insulation could be applied. He's asked a specialist to come in and look at that. We have to set up a time that can be done. Once the schools are all done, then this package will be complete.
Specifically back to the fire station, what type of heating system's in there?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, okay, don't worry.
I can find it in the report. It's obviously a relatively new system, but it is 20 years old.
Yeah, it is 20 years old, so that, to me, that's not relatively new anymore. It's just,
Yeah.
it's functional, but it's not
Right.
new compared to the improvements been made in the last 20 years on boilers.
Exactly.
82%.
82? Okay, so see, that's,
82% Will McLean natural gas boiler.
is that a gas boiler? Yeah. And what are we up now, 97% efficiency?
Well, not on the stuff we buy, because the 97% efficiency is double or triple the cost of the boiler, and we would only be able to do, like, we would do one boiler project, and it would wipe out our
Well,
capital plan for the year.
that's not totally true. I mean, the residential is not wiping you out. There's a fairly modest increase now because they're getting rid of a lot of low-efficiency boilers.
No, I understand that, but even when we replace, like, the boilers that just got approved at town meeting,
Mhm.
we will gain some efficiency, even though it is it's not a high-efficiency condensing boiler. But we make the choice we have so many needs for boilers that if you went with high-efficiency condensing boilers, like I said, I think it's 2 or 3 times the cost, and it would limit the amount we could do, each year.
Well, maybe it is commercial, but it's not residential 2 or 3 times the cost.
But it is for us.
Yeah, well, maybe we should find a different supplier if it is for us. But it is not for residential, I can assure you that, because I priced some out very recently.
I understand.
Yeah.
We price them out for large buildings.
Yeah, I understand, too. I just asked the question. I didn't want to go into rebuttal. I don't know if it's an 82, you said it's an 82? 82%? Okay, well, on today's standard, that's highly inefficient. That's all. It's just.
Okay.
So, Tom, can I ask the question of?
Did you ask?
Where do we find $18,000?
Yeah.
It's 34. Well, actually, can I ask?
No, I mean, Dr. Miller said if the town came up with 18,000, we get about 36,000 from the utility.
Right.
So I assume there's like $54,000 worth of work to do. But where do we come up with
Can I ask a different
18,000?
question?
Yeah.
Are they going to do that for that money? My only question is, with prevailing wage rates and us going out and procuring the services, I thought and I think this is great, and I know the incentives, highlighting the order of magnitude of the incentives or the percentage of the total is great. I feel like these numbers are a little low, but I think the point is well taken that there's incentives out there if we want to commit to doing these projects. And I don't know if they mentioned like prevailing wage or anything else, but we would have to, this gets to the level where it's over 10 grand that we would have to procure. In fact, some of it will end up falling into Chapter 149 because we're bidding on the 35,000, not the town's share, because the value of the project in the eyes of the Attorney General
54,000
is, well, whatever the amount is. So, and I'm not trying to make it sound like it's a barrier. It just is expectations management on did he, like I said, I'd ask Joe that question, like, are these estimates based on municipal estimates?
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that these are the estimates that the auditor gives. Then if you agree to go forward, then you open it up to bidding. And you get people come in, obviously, and bid the project. It might be higher and it might be lower. I don't know the answer. So these are estimates, not.
I'll ask him when he gets in touch with me. I'll ask him what they use for formula.
And David, you talked about air sealing. Could you explain that a little more?
The air sealing is around there's an access port or stairway up into the attic.
Mhm.
And apparently the material there has deteriorated, and that has to be sealed. It's like a big gasket, if you will.
Oh, okay, all right. So, all right, thank you. Marie, did you have another?
No, we were done with the audits. I
Oh.
wanted to give Liz a chance to talk about her exciting project.
Oh.
And I do think it's really exciting, because we haven't done this here in Long Meadow yet.
Hey, Liz, you didn't introduce yourself, so
Liz
please do.
Bone, 34 Elizabeth Circle. This is kind of not just energy or task force, but more also recycling, because it is. So Marie came to me a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, and said that one of her friends or someone she was talking to knew that the Forest Park Zoo really was in need of food for the animals. So I told our committee, and we were talking about it at our energy committee meeting, and I talked to the administration at the school and the food director at the school, and so we started a pilot program at the high school, and once a week, a volunteer, usually myself, another parent, go to the school, and they've been keeping scraps of vegetables and fruits from their back kitchen. And we also pass it by the health inspector, so it's okay. And I bring it to the zoo for the animals, and not only is it taking waste out of our waste stream, it's also feeding animals, and it's been going really well. So unfortunately school ends, but when school gets back up, we'll continue, and it'd be great if we could do it at all the schools. We just need more volunteers.
Okay, so,
Any
well, that sounds like a nice volunteer project for someone. Hopefully someone listening will contact your committee. What's the best way for them, should they contact the committee? What?
They could contact, I don't know.
Recycle or energy, or
Yeah.
I hate to have
Recycle
them
or
call you
energy.
directly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Recycle, yeah, we don't put you, but, okay, the recycle committee, okay.
Are they fairly selective on what they're taking?
Well, some things we've learned, they don't like mushrooms or onions. Sounds like kids. And they're not a huge fan of iceberg lettuce because it doesn't really have a nutritional value. So
How about the organic products coming out of gardens and stuff like that? Spent plants at the end of the year, is there any?
I don't think really, I think it's more of stuff that we would eat. They wouldn't be eating, greens or, tomato plants or things like that.
What animals are being fed?
Oh, I think there's like kangaroos and monkeys and cougars and deer and things like that.
Okay.
Goats?
Oh, the deer would eat everything in the garden, because they do right now,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one you know for sure.
By the way, before I forget it, I don't think we ever thanked Dr. Miller for the work he done.
Yeah.
So the public acknowledgement of, we kind of got the Feed the Ape routine got put there pretty quick.
Well, the feedback from the monkeys was terrible, so the school changed food vendors as a result.
Yeah.
The last part of that's true. The first part I made up.
Yeah.
But what's really valuable about this is we've been trying to talk about organic recycling for a long time, and it is on the horizon coming up that the towns are going to have to do this in a few years. And most towns that are doing it have to find a farm nearby that takes it, and the farms that we found were up north. And then all of a sudden, the zoo is very interested, especially during the winter. They say they have trouble feeding the animals in the winter. In the summer, everyone comes and they contribute, and the flow of cash is easier. But how many times does your bananas turn brown and you don't want to eat them, but the animals at the zoo do? So it's really saving on carbon emissions, because my understanding is the biggest
Like greenhouse gas.
greenhouse
methane
gases
from
is food.
Yep.
Is really, and so she's picked up the ball, she's done it, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to grow from here. I mean, like you said, maybe the gardens, maybe
Yeah, I just
Big
don't know if
Path. I don't know.
that product is available,
I
because
would
there's a
say
lot of
just-
spent plants each
Right.
year.
Well, I
Ask
do.
the director. right
Corn,
now.
spent corn, I don't know if they're.
Maybe.
They have any livestock they feed?
Yeah, there's cows over there.
What's
Yeah.
that? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Because I know cattle eat corn stalks
Pretty
pretty
much
good.
any.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of a great pilot project. I want to thank you, because you're putting a lot of work into it.
Oh, you're welcome.
All
And I
right.
would say, I hope all of you are thinking about composting, because that's another way to divert the food waste.
In fact, the recycle, I think
Nice.
Arlene had the little green containers you can get, and you just keep them on your
In your kitchen, yeah.
counter. You just throw things in and take
Yep,
it
you can get a
back.
compost bin down
Yeah.
at DPW.
Yeah, they're available.
It's the
Good.
future.
And when you see some of the shows I've seen where in Korea and other places, everything's being recycled.
Right.
The food waste is all going through, and nothing's being thrown in. And that's heavyweight. It's costing us
Yeah.
a lot of money, to the food that gets thrown into the waste.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
And Rob's here. Rob is also on our committee, which is wonderful.
Just support.
And the last thing the committee wanted to present was, there's been a lot of discussion on the committee on where we're going, and like when the pilot project came up, it sort of was out of our, as Stephen would say, our wheelhouse, but, so we handed in a new mission statement and a new composition, because we're having trouble filling seats, because certain people want to come in, but they're not part of the committees that we originally did the composition of. And some of those committees aren't bringing people over, so we're not expecting an answer today, but if, everyone could look it over and do their rewrites or their recommended changes, and if we could have a vote on that in a future meeting, that would be great.
Okay, and we've already made one change to that.
Yeah, but we
membership.
decided we just have to shake it up and just redo the whole thing, because there's so much that that we end up getting involved with. And I know some fabulous research has been done on the streetlights, and it's sort of, even that is a little bit out of what our original mission was, so we wanted to go over it with the select board and get a new view on what we should be doing.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can we
Richard?
bring Dr. Miller back up just for a second?
Please.
Oh, you guys can stay too.
David?
Hang on, stay. Could you tell us what's next?
Well, two things. The first would be to complete the Columbia Gas piece of the audit. And I hope we don't have to wait until the end of the school year to get that accomplished. What we need to do, I think, is get this done at the end of the school day, but before maybe 5 o'clock, and we're trying to get that organized. The second thing is for Stephen to meet with Joe Robinson, who's the representative basically for Eversource. And then I think once we have that information brought forward, present it to the select board, to Stephen, and have you gentlemen decide whether it's worthwhile going out to bid and go forward. And it's quite possible that you might look at one or two buildings and say, well, this doesn't make sense. Greenwood Center, for example, is one of the buildings that was looked at. I didn't give you detail on that, but you might decide, well, that just doesn't make sense. Or maybe one of the middle schools, you'll decide, well, that doesn't make sense. So I think you could pick and choose and take whatever you like.
So could we be looking at a warrant article for a fall town meeting?
I think what we'll do is, once we get the total findings, we'll probably work with the facilities director, and Paul and I will look at it and lay out priorities and maybe a phasing. I think ideally, same thing with the streetlights. Ideally, we'd like to be able to do this either within our capital or within our, maybe we beef up building maintenance budgets or something like that. And these things are also good, year end. If there are funds at year end, because none of these projects jump off the page as, like I said, we don't know what the final numbers would be, but none of them are $500,000 or $600,000 a pop. It's reasonable amounts of money that if you had good performance on the budget and you had 30 grand laying around, you could knock off one or two of these. So a combination of approaches. I don't think these are big enough. Cumulatively they are, but individually they're not big enough where you'd have to say, geez, we're going to have to go do attach it to a larger bond. I think we could work it into our operating budget.
Are these CPA eligible?
No, none of them would be. Because
None of them?
You wouldn't be making changes to the outside of the building.
Liz?
Well, they
that?
use CPA funds to replace boilers before.
You were sitting there and we were obligated to our streetlights.
Well, not yet. You just said that was just for the audit.
CPA funds have been used to replace
And the purchase?
Yeah.
boilers before.
Yeah, but I guess the other thing is, I don't know if CPA was used on boilers before.
Yes,
Yeah.
community house.
No, it wasn't. It was voted on, but it was voted down to do the streetlights, but we didn't do the streetlights. So it's not done, we haven't done anything with the
No,
boilers.
he's talking about
several years ago.
CPA funds for the boilers. I don't recall that.
Oh, CPA funds. I'm thinking Green Community.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we like every year we do our capital plan. We try and rearrange it.
We did windows at Stores Library.
We did a community house too. I'll find the record and we'll tell you what year
It
it
could be.
was.
That sounds familiar. Like I said, we'll take a look at all of the findings, and then we'll do kind of a prioritization exercise.
Yeah, because that's not
evaluate the
maintenance. That's not considered maintenance, what they're talking about.
No, because I think David's point is well taken. Like not the Solarize program we're about to hear about, but our solar meta grant that we're working with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission on, we're having the rooftops and parking lots analyzed for installation of solar. We're not doing Greenwood. Actually, to take that back, we are doing Greenwood. We're not doing the two middle schools.
Yeah.
Because the return on solar projects is well into when we think we're going to be hopefully constructing a new middle school. 10 years out or whatever that is. But for something like this, if the SOI process looks like it's still a bunch of years out, a 3-year, ROI, maybe that's something that's within shouting distance. But like I said, and these are all the things, there's a lot of moving pieces on it, but once we nail it down, I think we'll have a good plan.
CPA for streetlights?
If you put historic-looking ones like we haven't.
They're gas lamps.
I promise you,
Far-fetched, I think.
I promise you town council's gonna
We've been
take
able to fetch
a
it
dim view of
before.
that.
I just asked,
Can always try.
just asking a question.
Right.
It'd be a wonderful phase project, because they like to be involved in multi-range phase things like Old Swamp Fields and
Tennis courts.
tennis courts.
Just digging the hole
Those all
Oh,
deeper,
have
aren't you?
specials.
Yeah, I mean, it took us 7 years to get the tennis courts, but we finally got it.
Yes. It's nice how you took it from, I'm just asking a question, to, I'm actually making an editorial comment.
Is there anything else I'm forgetting? No?
All right. Well, thank you
Thank you,
for
guys.
coming in this evening and sharing
I
this
know, solar.
information. All right. So in terms of our agenda, why don't we finish up the old business by asking someone to forward a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, great. So now we can move to the town manager reports.
I'll defer to Steve.
Oh, Steve's here.
Just grab the chair before.
All right.
This is my non-PowerPoint.
The solarized mass, non-PowerPoint.
Where the camera is, I want the...
Hey, you're not going to waste energy.
It'll find you, Steve.
There's cameras all around.
Put it in the chair.
Yeah, put him on the front.
Put it in the chair.
Stephen Morantz, 117 Rugby Road. Here to talk about the Solarized Mass program, which is a joint program between the state of Massachusetts through the Clean Energy Center and towns and cities throughout the Commonwealth. We, the town of Long Meadow, has teamed up with the city of Springfield and put together a joint application to the Clean Energy Center to become part of the Solarized program. What this will do is give us the grand total of $5,000 to basically make things like this for publicity. So the money side of the grant is not why we're really doing it. It's more for the expertise of the state, which will help us, both City of Springfield and Town of Long Meadow, pick an installer, the solar installer. The whole idea of this is to install as many solar panels on residential and commercial buildings in both communities. The idea being, since we heard from the folks here tonight, this is a big energy event tonight, and we saw Columbia and we saw Eversource, and I'm not averse to saying if they made less money, that would be okay by me. And one way they'll make less money is if we generate more of our own electricity, own power, and by using the solar panels, that would actually happen. So the idea is to put as many solar panels on as many buildings as possible in the city of Springfield and Long Meadow. And the term that Stephen mentioned earlier, which was, it's pricing power. So if you have one or two people want to put panels on their house, it's going to cost them X amount of dollars. If 200 or 300 families want to do that, it's going to cost a whole lot less. So the whole idea is this will cost the folks who want to put solar on their either businesses or houses, the savings estimated probably between 20 and 30% lower than if you just did it on your own. The state will help us pick an installer, which is very important because this is somebody who's got to be able to do it in a timely fashion, economic fashion, and probably for a fair amount of homes. I mean, hooking up with the city of Springfield should certainly help us because that's going to put, it's the city of homes, and hopefully it'll have a whole bunch of folks who really want to do this. So we have group purchasing, installers picked. Our job in the town of Long Meadow is to generate as much publicity as possible. So with group meetings, individuals, that the installer can just say, okay, we're going to take a look at your house. We'll do the due diligence on your property, and then depending on how many folks sign up, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars for us to put this on your house. And we're hoping to actually start the installations modestly ambitious, but hopefully by before the end of 2018, we'd actually be putting stuff on people's roofs by then.
And so when people sign up, do they have to put a deposit or?
Unknown, I'm not exactly sure. They have to sign, somebody has to sign on a dotted line. I'm not quite sure what the actual monetary, that they have to pay eventually. I'm not sure what they're going to have to put down when they sign on a dotted line. I'm sure that's all worked out in the details. One of the things that my knowledge of this is still relatively rudimentary. I do go to a bunch of training programs that the Clean Energy Center does have for us, both in person and online. Good question. I mean, there are two other major questions that need to be answered from our point of view. One is for Long Meadow. Long Meadow has a lot of slate roofs, the whole concept of what happens with slate roofs and solar. That's an issue that needs to be addressed. And the other one is, because like Solar City, they're a big leasing program. The question is, will we do leasing or not? And again, that's a question that I don't really know. If it's just going to be strict ownership or leasing will be a possibility. I think that will depend on the installer and what sort of arrangements are reached.
And will these panels be uniform across the town? Because, will it all be one supplier?
I would be surprised if it wasn't. I mean, if one installer is going to be doing it all, I'm sure that company will be buying one set of panels from one manufacturer.
Yes, okay, thanks. Yeah.
Steve, what's the involvement of the government of the town of Long Meadow? This isn't a department of the town. It's not being so-called, we're not endorsing this to the point where we have liability. So are we like the coordinators of this or facilitators or?
I think, Stephen can talk a little bit about this. I think facilitator is the best description. One of the things the communities are expected to do is to facilitate or speed up the process of getting permitting done. I mean, to actually put panels on your house takes, there's hoops you have to jump through. And so in terms of making this happen as quickly as possible, the town is supposed to, is to make the permitting process happen as quickly as possible within, reasonableness.
Well, we're a solar by right town, by bylaw now, so it ought to be.
You still need a building permit.
Well, clearly,
and it is
building permit.
And there is a building and electrical inspection that goes along with it.
Well, you'd hope there'd be, but it's not that there are barriers so much as.
Well, the major barrier is going to be the folks who were here earlier tonight, which is going to be Eversource.
Well, so I guess one of my questions is, inevitably, if hundreds of families, which we hope, especially between Springfield and Long Meadow, maybe thousands of families do this. If something goes wrong one or two times, does the owner? I mean, the town's not liable for any of the. I mean, we're not doing anything other than saying, we're helping you get a better deal. It's your contract between the homeowner and the contractor, correct?
That's correct. It's between the homeowner and the installer.
Yeah, I think basically my role thus far is a little bit of editing and a signature. Steve is the solar coach, and he's got to build a team of volunteers. And this is what I think is we spent more than $5,000 in staff time working on this grant application, but as he noted, it really isn't about that. It's really a contractual relationship where the town commits to supporting this, I think, probably so the town doesn't stand in the way of it being done. And so I think it's a good idea. The town municipal corporation gets virtually no benefit from this. It's it's a direct benefit to the residents.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense, I think, for us with the all the stuff we've heard about the community's commitment to being progressive on energy efficiency, which is why when he broached it, I thought this was kind of an easy lift and something that I think community members really want. Like I said, we do have permitting processes and things like that, but we intend to make them as seamless as possible. And like I said, the real work is going to be done by Steve and his team of volunteers.
And a major impetus behind this is the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They are very supportive of this, and actually the whole idea generated from them. We were in contact with them. So the Pioneer Valley, and they were very helpful in terms of getting the application in, and in terms of walking us through the process. But if anyone's still out there listening at this time of night, I mean, the volunteer aspect is important just to make sure that folks know this, that it's out there, that's possible, and if you're interested in putting solar on your house or your business, this is going to be the most cost-effective way to do it.
Okay. And Richard has
Yeah, I
a
hit
question.
my hand first. You're jumping in again.
Yeah.
How about non-rooftop applications?
That's doable. So if you have a yard, you could do, ground installations will be part of this. And I'm also not positive, because we had a couple inquiries about if you actually have a large piece of property and say, I want to put my own little solar farm on here for a community, I think that could be part of the process as well, but that's still, I'm not sure about that at this point in time. But it does not have to be on your roof.
I think our zoning bylaws have something to say about that, though, just off the top of my head, about ground mounted versus rooftop. We have to check that out.
Yeah, just generally asking a question, because I don't know if the technology's moving, because there's some pretty neat
Yeah.
solar
Oh,
applications.
you can get the stuff where the panels move.
Yeah, I mean, there's some
follow
pretty neat stuff out there, and it's not hanging up on your roof. The solar flower. Have coffee and watch your solar flower bloom.
Marie?
So if someone wants to volunteer or is interested in getting more information, how do they contact you?
Yes, we have, at the moment, we will have a website once we're actually up and running, but right now it's, we have an email stop, so it's solarizelongmeadow@gmail.com. That's it, so if you're interested, want to know anything about this, want to volunteer, want to help, or want to have solar panels put on the roof, it's solarizelongmeadow@gmail.com. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you going out to the commercial properties, and do you have material to get to them?
Eventually, yes.
When you get more volunteers.
Yes, and there are not that many commercial properties in Long Meadow to go rolling to, but yes, that's definitely part of the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I guess the other thing would be, would this be in phases then? Because if you said, based on the number of people who participate, the price would be lower, but people aren't going to participate all like by October 1st, or is there a deadline?
There will be a deadline. There will be, once we're up and running, there's going to be, the first part of the project is actually it's going to send out a request for proposal, which the Clean Energy Center helps coordinate, and it's picking the installer. And that's going to be a month to 2 month period. Then it's going to be another couple months, 2, 3, 4 months of saying who's interested, installer group meetings, installer individual meetings to size, because sizing the installation is very important. Want to make sure it's generating enough, not too much, not but enough. But there'll be a cutoff point. November 1st, December 1st, October 1st. I'm not sure when that would be, but there'll be. You got this point in time to sign up, and then you're done as far as using this program to put solar on your house or your business.
And so if things move along, smoothly, then it could be pretty much planned, and then it could start in the winter or in the fall, next spring?
There are a couple of interesting deadlines in terms of what could happen in terms of there's an issue in terms of, this is our friends Eversource again, there's an issue potentially of after January 1st, 2019, about what happens. Right now, the electric company charges you a very nominal sum for the privilege of having solar on your house, even though you're basically producing more than you're using.
Yeah.
That number, that dollar amount is about to change, would change significantly come January 1st if you have not had a solar system installed. And so there is some, and the solar coach in Springfield is, he wants to move this as fast as possible to make sure that doesn't happen. There are a couple, our Attorney General has sued to stop this from happening. It's also, the state legislature might stop this from happening as well. But there are some time constraints that make doing it in 2018 reasonable. And so I would hope that we'd actually have some installations going on before the end of the year. And it's divvying up between Springfield and Long Meadow, and a bunch of details to be worked out as time goes by.
Okay, well, it's an interesting initiative, and I hope that folks listening who are looking to do some volunteer work would track you folks down
And
at your
I
website.
have one other thing, from absolute personal experience, there is nothing better than getting an electric bill that says, "We owe you money." at the end of the month. That's
can happen.
It does happen, and that's it won't save us from buying the streetlights, but at least it's something. So.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Okay.
thank you all.
All right, thanks for coming in. All right. And now we can move to the town manager reports. If that's good.
Well, it's 10 o'clock now, so I'll try and be brief. One of the things that is not in your report that has come up, in fact, you saw a hint of it in Columbia Gas's presentation, is the Forest Glen Western Ave gas pipeline is one that they're replacing. They want to start that this week, and they've requested to do the intersection work overnight. Forest Glen and Long Meadow Street. We've kicked that around internally. The police chief feels strongly that the only alternative is to do it overnight. We do have a bylaw about construction equipment that will essentially be authorizing a violation of. I've directed the DPW to make sure Columbia goes out and talks to the neighbors over there, but doing it during the day would be a catastrophic traffic event. And I don't know about you guys, but lately, because of Sumner Avenue, and they're not quite done with the north, they just finished the south direction on 91 today, but they did not finish north direction. It seems to me like at every time of the day, driving north on Long Meadow Street to get on the highway is a problem, and this would make it, like I said, just catastrophic. I'm inclined to say okay to the overnight work, but I wanted to get your feedback, because we did this in Dwight Road a couple years back in 2014. We authorized overnight work in the intersection of Dwight and Williams. There's really not residences as close as there are here, but it'll be 4 or 5 houses really that'll hear the noise versus 10,000 people that'll be stuck in traffic. So I want to get your feedback on that.
Where is it going to? Where is it from and to? Coming down Forest Glen, down Western?
Yeah, traveling east to west, across the intersection with Long Meadow Street. You saw it, like I said, on the map he had it. It was one of the red line ones, and they think it's one night. According to the message I have, they think it's one night. If they didn't get it all done in one night, they would backfill it, plate it, leave it, and then come back the next night and dig it all back up and start all over again. Like I said, if we do this, we'll have to make sure that the residents are aware of it and explain to them. It would be up to Columbia Gas to mitigate any troubles or put them up in hotels or something like that if they would do that kind of thing. But there's no good option at all for this kind of project. And like I said, I'm interested in your feedback.
Marie?
I don't think you have a choice. I think you've got to do night work. The whole town will come to a standstill if they can't get out the north end.
Or we push all the traffic south.
I don't think that'd be a good idea.
I'm just throwing it out, Marie. I'm not, not saying I want to do that.
Oh, my God. Well, the south has some traffic already, but the north is the worst, I mean, that's really a log jam there.
I guess,
Yeah,
Steve, I don't want to throw this back at you, but I really haven't given it enough thought to give you a reasonable answer, and I only say that because, based on what you said, clearly Marie's right. What choice do we have? But on the other hand, I don't know how you might. I'm not saying that. I haven't thought about how you might engineer this so that you could do it, during the day by moving to one lane or having to move traffic over or what. I mean, the traffic people do an awful lot of crazy things to keep traffic flowing, and maybe we say, look, you can't do it between 7 a.m. and 9:30, prime time. So I'm punting, because I don't have enough enough data to know if there really is an alternative to somehow squeak this through during the day. And I know at night is clearly a better answer, but even then, there are people who, somehow they got to keep some traffic flowing at night. I mean, they can't close it down at night, if nothing else, for emergency vehicles. So there's going to be some kind of a plan, so you're on your own.
You'd have to have those electronic signs, like Mark says, even at night work, because people are constantly shooting out the north end.
I'm not
Might
gonna give
even
you
be
help, 'cause
worth
it's
an
a tough one.
emergency phone call to people. By the way, you cannot get out. Vlog that out.
I mean, did Columbia volunteer to do it at night, or they?
They said it was their preference to do it at night.
Did they show a traffic plan or anything, Stephen, or
No.
a staging plan, or?
No, we haven't gotten that. The first step was, could we do it overnight?
Yeah. Well, they do a lot of pre-work, I guess, during the days to ensure that it was done overnight.
Correct.
Well, God help us if it's not open in the morning.
Because this is such a two bad choices, I really just wanted to, and I just got this a couple of days ago, the request. I just wanted to bounce it off of you. We'll iron out the details to minimize impact on the residents and minimize impact on traffic if we do decide to proceed overnight. But it was a threshold question that I'm really asking.
My vote is you can't not do it overnight. If that's the right answer, I would never say don't do it at night.
Instinctively, I feel the same way, because we talked about it earlier, and they want to get the work done as soon as possible. Like, do we push them off till the middle of the summer? We don't want to disrupt their flow. And then the other thing is, like I said, there isn't a time of the day where it seems to be flowing well to the north, through that intersection without queuing up significantly on Long Meadow Street. So,
Right. Do you know if the noise factor would get to the point where we would have to put people up in hotels?
no, I don't know.
Don't know.
But again, it wouldn't be us doing it. It would be
Eversource or the
Columbia Gas.
Yeah, Columbia
The other
Gas.
question is, what do they consider night? Is it, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., or is it, for us, night is, probably 9 p.m., the place shut, pretty quiets
I
down.
would imagine early, Mark.
But by 6 a.m., it's starting to move.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Have it open by 6 or 7 a.m.
According to them, it is 8 to 5.
Seems to me
Eight p.m. to 5.
For one night, and they say they think they can do it all in one night, and it's just that one intersection to do overnight. I think once they get back down Western Road, they'll go back to doing it during the day.
Right.
It's just this one intersection, and for one night,
And will this be done after schools are closed for the summer?
well, if it's at night, it doesn't matter.
Well, no, in terms of traffic.
No, they
in
wanted to
general.
start today.
They want to start.
They
as
wanted to
soon
start
as
today,
possible.
and I just told them outside. I went out to tell them.
Oh.
By the way, I'm going to ask them about it later, and we'll get back to you.
I'm sure your guys are going through it, Stephen. You've like experienced too. A lot of these things start out as one-nighters and mysteriously go into a second night. And I wonder a lot of times if you aren't planned, if it was better off to proactively plan, say we're going to do half the intersection and close and do the other.
Just plan out a 2-night project.
Yeah, just plan out a 2-night and put plenty of room in there, because it's got to help us if it's not open
Yeah.
at 5 in the morning. I mean, there's catastrophic effect on our town. And Lord knows what's going to happen if we get an accident on 91. Where's that traffic going to go? I mean, stop and think. Where is it going to go that night?
Yeah.
Maple Street is going to turn into 91. Worst case scenario.
You're right.
Well,
Now, the planning for a 2-night project may be the thing to do. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
But Richard's point about somebody monitoring 91 in the south end of town is pretty important.
Who knows where that traffic's going to go if it, in the middle of the night, something happens. And that's when it'll happen, too. We know that. You'll have some horrific event on 91.
But I think the volume is such that even if that did happen, the
Yeah.
queuing would still be less than doing it during the day.
Yeah, but it'll be queuing through town. I mean, you might even have to have extra law enforcement. Who knows? But they do the coordination on it, don't they? Are they pretty good on traffic planning? What you
I think on something like this, they are, and we tried to allude to that earlier. They do work closely with us.
Yeah.
And outside, they did compliment the DPW as being one of the best around in terms of being collaborative. And
Yeah.
we try and work with them as best we can, because when they either mess something up or we want them to do something different, we've got that established partnership where they're more flexible and willing to work with us on stuff.
Yeah, I just wonder, just by chance, if maybe they're unaware if 91 backs up, it goes right through the middle of our town.
Maybe they shut down if
Yeah.
something happens on 91.
Yeah, you just say played it and get out of here.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's another piece, it's another piece on the table that they have contingency plans for.
Because my understanding, the only other exit would be they'd have to direct everything to Dickinson to get up north, right?
I'm just
that would be the, and that would be.
I'm just going to buy an extra bottle of bourbon and stay home that night.
That's why I just tell
Yeah,
everyone,
I'll be
stay
snug
home.
as a bug in a rug.
Yeah.
Please tell us when it's there.
Yeah.
All right.
And we'll make sure we get notification out.
In at dusk, out at dawn.
And then, groundbreaking? Are you ready to?
Yeah, sure. I just need to make these notes. So we settled on Friday, June 1st at 11, mostly because it was the only time Marie couldn't be there. So it is somewhat time sensitive because they are going to get going on the demolition of the work. And that's why, unfortunately, I would have loved to have everybody there, but we wanted to get it done. As is typical with me, I don't have details on the plans yet. I'm going to draft some folks to help me work on the logistics. I have kind of sent out save the dates to the permanent building committee and some others to make sure they are available as well. I mean, we'll make sure the community, we put out notice to the community that they'll be invited, and then we'll have we'll try and plan a kind of luncheon reception. Not a community luncheon reception, but a luncheon reception for the guys, for the select board, for the permanent building, for the people who have been like the real stakeholders in the project. Where that happens and how that happens is to be determined. We're looking at I thought about having it right there in the tennis club, but there's the water shut off and it's not great. So we may look at the community house, have everybody come back to the community house. So but that is something that we want to do. We're gonna, at least for me, it's a pretty big deal. I think it's a big deal for the town, but I think for all of us, it's a lot bigger deal than the, average resident, just because of the level of effort that it took to get there and the duration the long time duration of the effort. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be a great day for the whole town, but especially for the DPW and all of us who are involved. Mm-hmm. I don't have a speaking program set for that. I did extend the invitation to our state rep and state senator. At not any elected officials really beyond that because it was a pretty small circle. But if you have any suggestions on people you think who should be invited to speak, just let me know. On two issues, on Dwight Road intermunicipal agreement and Westcom, there's a bunch of stuff in the packet just for review. I know we're going to talk about Westcom. Chief Stankiewicz is out of town, so we want to wait till he's here so you can hear from both he and Chief Dearborn. But I encourage you to review the grant application we submitted for $2.5 million. It's got a lot of great details in it. I had sent the timeline that was used for our FY18 grant amendment, which I've been told by the state will be approved. When you piece those things together, I think even though I'm involved in the emails and the meetings and things like that, seeing it written that way reminded me that this is a real thing and that it presents a real opportunity to the town and that the pieces are there that can fall into place. So it was really kind of a corner turning moment where in terms of believing in a concept, I believe in the chiefs believe in an actual structure. Like we can see what it looks like now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exciting.
And so for the rest of the board, I don't know if you guys saw in the paper that
East Longmeadow and Hampton have formed a
trying to form something together.
They're doing that. I mean, Hampton's I think they're going to host it. I wish them the best of luck in doing that. If you're a regional dispatch, you get, and this is one of the reasons why we've been pushing for this, you can get capital improvements paid for, where if you're just a standalone, you will not be able to get those capital improvements paid for. Mm-hmm. That's what's motivating people to join the region.
So are they becoming a region?
Yep.
So they're doing their own region
to town,
and they're getting the money. like we are.
I don't know that they've applied for any money yet. And we'll see how, I mean, I think that the bigger region was a bigger challenge for them, especially since East Long Meadow was converting from sworn, like, police officers doing their dispatch to civilian personnel doing dispatch. I think once they transition into their own district, the districts will merge at some point in time, because it'll just make too much sense not to.
Well, they're going to have civilian dispatch on the regional.
We do.
No, I mean on their new regional.
Hamden has civilian dispatch, which is why it'll
Right.
be over at the Hamden Police Station, for what I'm told.
It's so puzzling that they've gone and are building their own after they dropped off in ours.
You know, they just have a different view of how they think they should do it. The reimbursement rate that we're going to get by being in this dispatch center with Chicopee, I think is going to be higher than what they get. We are certainly ahead of them in line when it comes to construction and support grants. So we'll be, if this all falls together like the way it's looking, our Westcom will be operational probably close to the same timeline or well before theirs. I don't know what technology upgrades Hamden needs to make, or what staffing changes they need to make, or if they need to do a whole new district agreement or anything. I'm worried about my own regional dispatch. But I think that, they dropped out because of uncertainty about the future, not because they didn't believe in the regional dispatch concept. And I think I had stated that when they dropped out. I think that when you read, like I said, the documents that are in the packet, it's not as speculative as it seemed even for me, 2 months ago. It really is starting to, come into sharp focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Stephen, I just have a bunch of comments to say, and I'm going to hopefully not get into a major discussion, but back on April 2nd at our meeting at the board here, there was some expression by at least two people here of whether or not there was another, what the level of commitment was from the select board to finalize our participation in this regional dispatch center. That was on April 2nd, and I actually went back and looked at minutes, I looked at my notes, and I looked at the recording of a couple of prior select board meetings. There was one on December 4th of last year, and the comment was, there's still no obligation by the select board. We will get a final chance to vote for our participation. All we were doing was, continuing to go through the preliminary findings or investigation. And again, on January 16th of 2018, at a select board, when it came up again, we were told we're still not finalized. We will have a final vote if we want to accept it. We've been waiting for a discussion with the police and fire chiefs for some time. But I read here that, quote, I'm sending you this letter in my official capacity I attest to the fact that the town of Long Meadow has agreed to participate with the city of Chicopee as a partner in the forming of a regional emergency communication district and dispatch center. And I don't agree with that statement. I don't believe that the select board approved it. I've gone back to the minutes. We were told there will be a chance to vote on it, and I'm not saying we would not be approving it, but we have not approved it. And I'm just really disappointed that as recently as a month ago at our early April meeting, when the discussion came up, at least you heard that there was a concern by a couple of us, if not three of us, that final approval had not yet come. And yet on May 14th, you found fit to write a letter to the state saying that you are authorized, that the town of Long Meadow has agreed to participate. And I just think that's it was just bad judgment based on the comments that we made here expressing a concern. And I don't know what else to say, but I'm disappointed in what's happened because I still think that we were told that we would have a chance, that we had not gotten to the point of no return. And this letter says we're clearly there.
That's not what the letter says, Mark. And fact, The select board voted to join the district.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes,
When? Date?
I don't remember the date, but the select board voted to join the district, and all that letter says is that we are participating in the district.
Stephen, you're going
The vote,
to have to give us a date. I agree with Mark. We've never voted.
You voted to approve the district agreement?
We voted to approve the concept of you getting a grant to start the preliminary research.
Listen, I'll get the date. The
Please
fact
do.
is, the town voted to approve the district agreement. And back then it was a 5-town, or a 4-town, or a 5-town district agreement. But we voted to approve the district agreement. The district agreement is still in effect. And
What is a district agreement in your view,
the
Stephen?
district agreement is the constitution of this regional dispatch center.
But it's not the fact that we're all going to proceed. There was a commitment that we would explore.
To get to the next round of funding from the state to continue the process, you had
Right.
to establish the district.
Right.
And join the district.
Right.
We have done that.
And that
And all that
district-
letter says is that that's what we did.
And that district fell apart.
No, well, the district has changed. The district did not dissolve, it just changed
It went from
parties.
5 to 2.
Right, but it still exists as a district.
Okay. I think what Mark was saying, and my concern, I'm equally concerned too, because I don't know where the finances are going on this. We have never seen a financial statement placed before this board saying what is the impact, the out-year impact, not just tomorrow, the out-year impact, an honest evaluation. It's not been presented.
So one of the things that I have reported on is that we've been doing speculative operating budgets based on our estimation of what operations were going to be, and we apply for the most recent, for the $1.3 million we received in FY18. We had a plan for the 5-town rec. That changed to a 4-town rec. That changed to a 2-town rec. The district agreement has not been modified to reflect a 2-town rec. That's an administrative item that we'll have to get to. But in terms of the actual structure and the financing and the costs, the grant application that I just gave you for the first time really spells out, here's our staffing model, here's the equipment we need, here are the quotes from the vendors that we think that equipment will cost us. Here's all of that dumped into the budget, and then with the state reimbursement, here's what our annual cost will be. And that's the assessment that the town will pay to the region to provide dispatching services. And it's, as I show, significantly less than what we're paying for our dispatching services today. Like a lot less. So, and the other thing is, and this is something that, from an operational standpoint, why this is a good idea.
Well, we've heard all that.
Right.
We've heard the pep talk. We're down to the nuts and bolts of it.
I'm giving you the
No,
nuts
you're
and
not.
bolts.
You're giving me a pep talk. I don't want a pep talk.
Well, like I said, with Chief Dearborn and Chief Stankiewicz here, you can get into the nuts and bolts as deeply as you want to.
No, we're not even talking that nuts and bolts. We know the guys want it. We know you're a pep talker for it. We know all about that. We're talking about the long-term cost. And back in the December 4th, 2017 meeting, when we asked about East Long Meadow and all, I mean, they dropped out because of non-dependable funding sources being identified for the state. Have they been identified now?
They don't believe that, they believe there's the potential that the state will not fund a regional dispatch center at the same level in the future. And I guess that potential conceptually always exists, but the state is making policy changes for the long term to promote regional dispatch.
Well, I guess what is inconsistent in my mind, and I watched the entire meeting again, it's only about 14 minutes. And I'm sure the information given was the most current information, but what is so inconsistent in the thought process is they dropped away from us and have gone and trying to form their own. When 4 communities certainly would have been cheaper than 2 and 2. I mean, we're literally talking about 2 rec centers now within a stone's throw of each other. That's about as ridiculous as 4 towns having their own personal dispatch
So,
centers.
Richard, I think, first of all, I think calling me a pep talker on this is pretty
Don't-
disrespectful for the
you don't-
level
you
of
don't
effort
have-
and detail
don't-
that I've put
Stephen,
into this.
Don't worry about your feelings getting hurt at this point.
So, no,
We'll
I just
deal with that
want you
later.
to accept that what I'm not giving you is a
Okay.
pep talk, what I'm giving you is factual information.
We've
Second of all,
heard all the talk
second of
on the
all,
pros and cons.
I'm not
That's
gonna
not what
sit
we're
here-
asking.
I'm not gonna speak for Hamden and East Long Meadow.
Well, address what was said on the darn meeting back in January 4th then.
All I'm addressing is, are we a part of this? We voted for the district agreement. You can drop out of the district agreement, just like Hamden and East Long Meadow did, with virtually no cost to the town. There'll be no penalty if we drop out of the district agreement.
Well, then what are, you're going for permanent funding now? You're hiring a director? That sounds like a pretty strong commitment that we're going into the rec. You're saying it's going to be operational in less than a year.
It could be operational.
Am I missing something? If I'm missing something, please let me know.
No, that's all true. We are carrying forward with the district in accordance with the district agreement.
Okay, but we've never voted to go forward. I think we're playing games on the words. And I don't mean that negatively. It just says there's a gameplay, whether it's a district or whether it's a rec. I mean, we formed a district with 5 people, 5 towns. Now we're down to 2. And it's my understanding, I guess it's Mark Gold's understanding, the other board members, that you were going to wrap this whole project together and come in with a massive presentation and say, here's what it looks like on a 5-year window. Are you guys ready to go with it? Mm-hmm. And as I say, when you're saying pep talk, I don't mean that negatively, Stephen. It's just, we've heard it. We know all the benefits. We don't need to be repeated. We're not stupid. We want you to give us the information that we thought we were going to be presented to make the final decision.
So the most concise way thus far that information has been consolidated is in the 2 documents that I've recently given you. And those 2 documents were only created recently. Because, as noted in the timeline, in December, the entire landscape on this project shifted, and we didn't know which way we were going. But in working with Chicopee and the service chiefs there, and working with the state, we got ourselves kind of recentered and believe that the 2 towns that are in it believe that the state is committed to this project, both in the short and in the long term. And again, I think this is a conversation to have with the chiefs present, because the only thing I really care about is this good for Long Meadow?
But the chiefs are not the money people. The board is the money people. We're the ones that worry about the long-term future of our community on the money. We're talking money only.
Right, but I think that I'm going to disagree with you that we don't, that myself, Paul, and the 2 chiefs don't worry about the money long term.
They're not responsible for the money. We set the tax rate, we do the budget. They do not set the tax rate, they do not use the budget. They're going to be part of the rec. That's an operational tool that they're going to trying to move into. But they do not have any core responsibility for setting the tax rate in this town or worrying about the long-term tax implications of us moving forward with a plan like this. Is that correct?
No, well, do they vote on the tax rate? No, they don't vote on the tax rate. Do they virtually every day demonstrate that they have concerns about the financial stability of their department specifically and the town generally? Yes, they do. And for them, this is about the money as well, because what this does for them is long-term, when things get tight, it helps save the jobs of patrol officers and firefighters.
That hasn't, you haven't demonstrated that yet. That's what we keep waiting to see.
Like I said, the budget that is in the grant agreement is the most up-to-date reflection of where we would realistically think the finances on this are going to fall.
Tom, I think
Yeah.
Richard's asking for a 5-year projection, if that could be pulled together, on where that looks.
A 5-year projection of what?
Of the costs and the benefits, the savings.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you've set them aside that you're getting more savings than we thought, and we just sort of like to see the numbers, so maybe it might be something Paul's got to pull together on what we're looking at, the actual costs are, and what the projected savings might be for expenses over the next 5 years. So we know what we're facing as it slowly builds and moves into our budget, and where we might see the grants pulling back.
Sure.
Am I just putting words in your mouth, or is that what you were looking for?
No, I would like, actually, I'd like us to watch the January 4th, 2017 meeting and see if the answers to the questions. At that time, there was a lot of confusion about future state funding. That seemed to be why East Long Meadow and all dropped out. Now they, for some reason, have gone back in, which just doesn't make sense.
Again, I can't speak for them.
Yeah.
They had different situations in their own shops that they were contending with, where they felt that at the time they made the decision, this wasn't right for them. We, Long Meadow and Chicopee, have been involved in this for a long time as well, and we evaluate our own individual situations differently. And in our analysis of Long Meadow's situation, this makes a lot of sense for us. And in Chicopee's situation, it makes a lot of sense for them too.
And the grants, is there a timeline of funds? Like, is the grant going to be contributing money to this for the next 5 years, or?
Yeah, we get 911 grant money every single year.
Okay, so that's pretty stable.
Yeah, that revenue stream is based on cell surcharges, not tax revenue.
So the other money that's sort of variable, in terms of we're not sure what the state's commitment, we have a figure on that, and we could tell how long that was.
There's development grants, which are like the $1 million, $2 million chunks to buy the equipment to do the build-out.
Infrastructure, all that.
And then there's the annual support grants that we get, that all of us, all the communities, or many communities in Massachusetts get annual support grants of some varying amount. What the state has committed in writing is that they will reimburse 75% out of the support, Westcom's operating costs, 75% annually in that support grant.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, Stephen, I guess where I'm coming from is that I recall being very supportive of a 5-town and then a 4-town rec based on a budget projection we had that looked pretty good. All along, the concept of service was kind of a given. It needs to be equal to or better than the service we're given. We currently have. That's a given. But as we went from 4 towns to 2 towns, we kept saying we're going to, my concern was, what's the new economics look like? What's the new and it'll be coming. But until it came or comes, I kept saying, we need to be able to potentially change our mind. And again, I go back to, a December 4th, 2017 select board meeting when we told, you can still change your mind. We're waiting to get that economics.
And you can still change your mind.
But we still haven't gotten that economics. And I'd love to try to be supportive of this, but I'm being told, not necessarily in such words, but is trust us, it's going to be great because we're getting all this state support and we have two towns. But until I see a budget, ideally more than the first year, and I can assess for myself, the assurance and the security of this year after year state revenue, which I got to tell you, I lived through the Quinn bill that the state guaranteed they're going to reimburse us forever for the cost of bonuses we gave our police officers for getting higher education because it was a separate source of revenue, and then they changed that law too. So there's, the state can say anything they want to, and they can reappropriate the money pretty clearly. But I'm just looking for the, I said what I really feel, Stephen. I read this thing that says you attested to the fact that Long Meadow has agreed to participate with the city of Chicopee. And in fact, from my perspective, and I know you disagree with me, but my perspective is we did not agree to participate with the city of Chicopee. If we had any agreement at all, it was a 5-town rec that didn't include the city of Chicopee. That was the last thing we voted on, and that was just to go out and get the money. And I'll tell you when that was. It was back in June of 19th of last year at that. I mean, I went through every meeting, I went through all the minutes, I went through all my notes, I went through all the recordings, and I can tell you every meeting we talked about it and what was decided, Stephen. And I don't
Where do we
have,
go from here? Where we go from here,
Yeah.
my recommendation is you come back us with a 5-year budget and we can have a full discussion on it. But if not, we're just spending our
Right,
wheels.
that's what I was gonna say. If next meeting the chiefs are here, if I can have some, I'll have some projections. They're not only gonna do the operational, but one thing you would hear from the fire chief is that we'd probably have $1 million infrastructure for communication bill coming up within the next 5 years, as this is also picking up the tab on. And that would have to be also part of the whole cost benefit analysis.
no doubt, Paul. I mean, I understand that. And I'm not arguing the concept of this, I'm arguing the process.
What are we arguing about?
I'm arguing the process, Stephen. The process is, we were told we would get a chance, and yet you proceeded without us getting that chance. You know, all you had to do is say, I'm about to do this, you know, we need a special meeting so you guys can vote on it. But Marie, that's very important, that the
And you have said it, and you've laid it on the table.
and I've laid it on the table, and I'm not
next
a
step?
happy camper.
Yes, I know. So the next step is, I think we gotta get the 5-year plan. We decide where we're going with it in the next step from here. I have some notes on some reasons that the Hampton and East Long Meadow went with that. We'll have a discussion and decide if that's worth bringing up, but I think it has to come to another meeting.
Again,
Okay.
I don't think we should be in the position of answering for Hampton and East Long Meadow. It's just,
Yeah.
this works for us. And that's all we want to have the chance to talk to the board about.
And
So
if,
another agenda if we could do it.
Yeah.
put on the agenda, if we need to have a affirmation vote, we could always do that, I guess.
Well, no, the vote would be to drop out of the district.
Because we've already, well,
No, I want it on the record that I have gone through the last 18 months of our meetings. We have never voted to join this district as is currently construed. We have never voted to join this, Tom. That's not saying I wouldn't vote for join it. It's not saying I'm not in favor of joining it. The process stinks here because we had a town manager who went out and ran ahead of the process without getting us to vote on it, in my
No, I
opinion.
didn't. No, I didn't. Now you're just, you're not a happy camper, so now you're just kind of suggesting that I've done something. We joined the district. We adopted the district agreement. The district has been following the district agreement processes to get to this point. Go back and read the district agreement. Everything that we've done, voting to allow towns to drop out, voting to accept new towns, all of that stuff has happened. We've got minutes for the district to prove it. All of that stuff has followed the district agreement that was adopted by the board. That's a fact. There's no running ahead, there's no like trying to sell this, or it's just, all that's happened,
Right, let's just-
and that's a matter of public record.
Let's
so we
move on
will
to the next
end
agenda.
We'll end discussion on that note. We'll come back to it in the future. Snow and ice expenses.
I just want to note that there was after the fact at town meeting, we discovered that there was a slight difference of about $19,614 in funds that were allocated during the town meeting, extra money for snow and ice that probably should not have been in the total that was given at town meeting. One of them was the cost of leasing the vehicle. We have a line item for vehicle leasing. I think that the DPW, because we used that one leased vehicle exclusively for snow and ice, we're carrying in that budget. And then the other thing was the demolition of the salt shed, which happened some months ago, and they were carrying it there because it is the salt shed, but we weren't sure about the bids for the DPW project, but now that the bids have come back,
So where's the money gone?
Go to the treasury.
It's just in the general.
It'll just go back to treasury.
Yeah, just go back to the general fund,
Okay.
like we never expended it.
And then the other thing is the Dwight Road intermunicipal agreement. East Long Meadow is supposed to be getting back to me with their comments. And this would basically govern the performance of the Dwight Road work and the payment of the Fairview or Berkshire, or whatever the name they're going to use for the agreement, a $20,000 payment to the town. Also, the LEPC application was submitted and approved. We were certified right then and there. Chief Dearborn attended that meeting.
What's the LEPC?
The Long Meadow, the Local Emergency Planning Committee. which ties into your MVP thing. It's kind of
Yeah, but, so we got the grant on the MPV?
no, on the LEPC,
LAPC, okay, but
which is just as important as the MVP. Which
Yeah, but
which he came here and said, this is all a part, these are all interconnected.
Okay, so this is the first part, and that's the second. So that's.
They're different things, but connected by the subject matters that they cover.
Okay.
Okay. The other one is just a little bit of self-aggrandizement. The three owners of the primary commercial properties in the center of town, shops, well, actually, the Big Y doesn't own the property, but they handle the property by virtue of their long-term land lease. And then Long Meadow Mall, originally approached us about installing lights in the tree-belt trees. And I said, what would be great is if you talk to the other two, and then you could do the whole area and, have the same kind of lights, like do kind of a coordinated thing. I said, oh, by the way, we're at the front end stages of a streetscaping pedestrian improvement project that we're going to be pitching you in the near future. Would you be willing to talk to each other and maybe buy the same kind of lights, have them on the same timer, maybe do every other tree across the street, so not every tree is, you see it from space. And I got a little bit of pushback of, well, we haven't talked to each other in 20 years and we don't work together on stuff. And I just said, okay, fine. And I sent all of them an email, said, could you talk to each other about this? And they all said, yeah, this is great. And in fact, we're meeting tomorrow morning to kind of go through that and show them our town center project, that concept that we're working on.
And that includes sidewalk, crosswalks, new crosswalks and all of that?
Yes.
Great.
And then our new ambulance will be here soon.
Excuse me, Tom?
Yes, Mark.
I just have a couple of comments, I guess. I heard what you said about snow and ice misclassification. I guess I'm not sure of the implications because it was a town meeting vote, but I'll assume that we can kind of say, don't worry about it, we just voted money we don't need.
What happened is that money will be left over, the 19,000 will be left over in the snow and ice budget, and it'll just be closed at town meeting.
Oh, okay, so we did move it in because town meeting
Right,
voted to move it in, okay.
We voted too much
Okay.
money in, actually.
I see. The other thing, I guess, that I just wanted to find out a little bit about is the forestry overrun on the forestry line item that was highlighted in the DPW report. This wasn't just a little overdrawn, it was overdrawn by $65,000, give or take. And, I just asked that we kind of, because it was contractor expenses, it would seem to me that we ought to be able to control contractor expenses on line item budgeting. I guess enough said.
I would just answer that Mark is correct. It was significantly overdrawn. It's because we've been 2 to 3 men down, which is 10%. And really, it's more than that because not all 30 members of the DPW crew do tree work. So but the 2 or 3 positions we've been down usually would have been involved in that. We've had to contract with Northern Tree for significantly more than we normally would, and obviously we pay them a higher rate. We do have some savings, obviously, in salary accounts because we haven't had those positions filled. But the DPW management, I think, was just trying to keep up with the work. And because I think if you look at their overall budget, they're on target. This one line item jumps off the page, but again, there are other line items that they are performing well in, and I think at the end of the year, they'll probably slide into home plate, on target. But they made a decision that keeping up with the tree work, especially emergency tree work and stump grinding, and like our stump grinder's been broken, and we haven't had the manpower to use it, even if it was fixed. As you recall, we bought a used stump grinder from Northern, and we were saving some money from them over the last few years by not having a contract stump grinding. That's been all contracted. So I think if you look at the overall picture, I think they're okay. But on this line item, I don't personally think it should have gotten that far. But I think it's Like I said, I think they made the decision that the community wants to make, we were talking about the trees, that the tree work was a priority for the community, and so they just kept going with it.
If I can just follow up one thing, Marie.
Yeah.
I mean, the question is, did the DPW management team know this was going over, or was this kind of a, Northern had a carte blanche, and they came back and said, oh, here are your bills, and I don't need an answer. I'm just saying, you know, one versus the other is a different way of management, and it's, you know, if they're just saying, Northern's just going out and they sent us bill, you know,
No,
that's bad management of your subcontractors, as opposed to, we made a conscious decision because we need
I think it was
have the work
more,
done.
keep giving them work orders, and we'll sort out the money later, because we have so much tree work that we need to do. And I don't know if that's your understanding as well, but.
Right, because I spoke to Mario months ago about this, and again, it's more of the emergency work and keeping up with the dangerous trees and that had to come down more than anything at this point in time, or for the last couple of months.
I will tell you that you can take the 60,000 or whatever it's overdrawn, 65,000, and add 11 more, because after that tree fell on Long Meadow Street, Jeff and the Northern went out and did an inspection where rather than just look up, and they did some testing of the trees. And there's 3 more that are emergency status that have to come down, and that's, you know, involving cranes and, you know, lane shutdowns and things like that.
Okay, Marie?
I think this is something that's been hanging out there in Long Meadow for many years, and that is rebidding the tree work. I think that we've been having Northern do all our tree work all these years, and that's a tremendous amount of money. And to see this overrun, and it's all emergency, I think we should be going and putting these things out to bid again and see
I
what
think they
comes back.
just did it.
Yeah,
recently.
I'm not sure, I mean.
We've had Northern as our
No,
only tree
you're right.
guy.
No,
That doesn't mean we don't bid it out, Murray.
Right, I understand that, but.
That doesn't mean we don't bid it out.
Yeah, but often the bids are, the way those bids are written out, I think they should be looked at
That's not how
very
we do it.
carefully.
It may have gone out for a 3-year bid recently with 2 optional years, so I don't know where it is in the interim. And one of the hard things that we find with competitors is the response time. That Northern is there with a significant response time, or to meet the bid specs, and that would be the thing that would have to be lessened, is that response time as far as coming back from some of the other tree companies. But again, I can tell Chad, when the opportunity arises, we can put it back out.
Yeah, I know we've done it in the last few years.
Or even have multiple trees services that we use.
So I think you're heading down the wrong path on hanging this on the contractor. Northern works at the direction of the DPW. And so.
I think it's a multi-level issue when you get to this amount of run over, whether it's management of that, or even you gotta go back and look at your contracts too. That's all I'm saying, is check the contracts.
I understand that. What I'm saying is that the work orders are generated by the DPW. We can talk about the rates. Maybe the rates that we're paying for emergency work are high.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking
but-
about the rates, and also saying, oh, that's an emergency, that's an emergency, that's an emergency. I think it's worth it to have several contractors that you're working when you talk about the large amount of money we're spending.
Okay.
So just relook at it.
The one thing, I mean, I don't think Northern makes that decision of which ones are emergencies.
Right.
It's more or less the tree warden who directs them. So I don't want to give the public the presence that we're, just letting them dictate to us.
Okay, Mark?
Tom, I'd like to continue this discussion, but we have 2 items of business we have to conduct, and we may only have 10 minutes to do that.
Yes.
And one is to award a ban.
2 bands.
2 bands. And to that degree, if I'm allowed to, I'd like to make a motion about the ban.
Please do.
The other is our election warrant. But I'll move that we award to Century Bank a 360-day, $1,290,275. $1,290,375 bond anticipation note at a rate of 2.05%, and award the 90-day, $4,240,000 bond anticipation note as follows. The first $2 million to Century Bank at a rate of 1.9%, and the remaining $2,240,000 to Eastern Bank at a rate of 2%.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Marie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Bill's not in the room.
All right. And then if we could go to the signing the annual town election warrant.
I move to approve the warrant as written.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor? Okay.
Is there something we have to sign for the bond? The ban?
Yeah, well, the warrant, we have to, oh, this.
Cheryl, give you any paperwork?
No.
Mhm.
Okay,
The,
I'll have to track it down and get it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have thought the paperwork would have been here. Okay.
I assume that you had it, I probably should have asked.
So should some of us show up tomorrow?
No, why don't we send out an email to make sure that we have it first?
Okay.
And then it will send out an email. I don't think it has to be done. I mean, we have plenty of time. The ban is not due until the 30th of May, so
Oh,
there's a little bit of time.
For this while you're out, if you want to sign it.
Before we shut down the town manager report, can I just make one comment?
About the manager report? I didn't mention it yet.
No, town manager's report.
Town manager's
Oh, the town manager's
Yeah,
report. Oh,
town
okay,
manager's
yes,
report,
yes. I
yeah.
thought okay, yes.
Something that was said here by Columbia Gas is they basically said, we have filed for a agreement with Tennessee at DPU. And I think it's really important for us to figure out what has been filed, because my understanding is that if we're going to have any say in what's being done, we need to file a interested party brief or get involved at this point in time. So I'm just asking if you could get information on it or hand this over to a town attorney and see if he could, talk to another attorney to see if we should be doing something at this point in time. Because they've already filed something, the two briefs are there and they're waiting. I know the step after that is facilities siting board, but my understanding, we should probably look and see what this agreement is about. If you could report back to us and let us know.
Okay, I mean, in which direction?
What do you mean in which direction?
It sounds like you want us to file an interested party thing in opposition.
I want us to know what we should be doing and what as a town, are there certain things we should be doing to protect ourselves in the decision-making that's being made, or if there's really nothing we can do, but only, I think, an attorney gets involved with DPU issues would be able to really answer that. I don't know enough. I'm just asking if we could check.
I was going to say, isn't it at some point where we have a say in the location of this thing, or the gate valve, or whatever it is?
Does the select board?
Yeah.
I don't think, only if it's on a town property. And then, well, the town would have a say if we're going to lease the town property. But in terms of citing it and permitting and things like that, it would be up to the regulatory bodies.
That's why I'm thinking we need to know, or at least have our ear to the ground of what exactly is being said there. And they should be willing to give us what the file is. But again, an attorney who deals with utilities would be able to tell us if I'm off base or if we're behind the 8 ball.
Okay.
Thanks.
Tom,
Okay, yes.
the lights are starting to go out in the hallways.
I think it's just intermission.
Huh?
It's just intermission, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we don't know if their
So we gotta
clocks
do
are
the-
right.
We do have to sign the town election warrant.
Well, we did.
We did.
We
Okay,
signed
sorry.
that. So just,
I'm typing.
We
I
could
guess I would
start
just,
So
any
Rachel, we can
second.
put up
before
another
we
day.
run
Yeah.
out of time, I guess I would just say that the town manager's evaluation process will begin. You've all received in the packet the evaluation tool that we've been using,
Don't fill it out tonight.
and we will.
When do we have to get it to you?
We have a
No,
few
to
minutes
her.
to finish it, fill it
her.
out. No,
Put
no.
it together.
But
Yeah.
when?
Okay.
So you recall there was a recent Supreme Court
Right,
decision,
right.
somebody not on the board has to consolidate it, and that would be.
Only if you have a clerk.
Wasn't this
Yeah.
one court? I thought it was the AG.
Okay.
Who was the AG?
I mean, it was,
Yeah, it's AG.
I thought it was
Do we
based on a
have-
court decision, though.
Do we have
Yeah, it was Wayland.
Did you pick a date, Tom, when that has to be to Debbie?
It was the Wayland decision.
I think last year was due in the first 4 weeks of June. I know that.
1st of December.
I think it might be June 12th.
Well, the 1st of June, first week of June?
No, second week, June 12th. I was around there because
We're town of Wayland.
it was one of the first things that I had
SGC,
to
right?
put together when I became chair.
Yeah.
I'll work on it.
SJC,
So-
April 5th, 2018.
Yeah, the reason she
Yeah.
was goofing off.
Yeah, that's it.
So
No, but
we'll-
I'll get it, so before June 12th, we have to get it to
I would
Debbie.
say June 12th, we should have, Mark says I'm good, June 12th
Yeah,
will be our,
that's fine.
our plan to get get them consolidated. And then the Springfield Water and Sewer potential rate changes, it sounds too dismal to discuss at this point. So
Too
we-
dismal.
So we'll put that into the next agenda, and
Can I just make a quick comment about the water and sewer, Tom? Because a few years ago, it was actually Alex Grant who had an argument that said, we ought to set the rates before people start using the water. And so then we started doing that, and every year since we started doing that, we set them and then we had to change them again. We ought to just think about why are we setting them in January only to change them in May, and we can just set them once in May.
I think it
Paul
was
does
only
twice
last
the
year
work.
and this year that we've had to
No.
do it. It's all because
Right,
they
so-
changed their capital program, but
So who
there
are we
is a
kidding here?
pattern.
Paul's doing twice as much work, and maybe we should only do it once.
All
Something to think about for next year.
good comment. We will, I hope there's no subcommittee reports.
I'm not gonna get one.
Okay, then
I'm just getting
a
ready.
motion for adjournment,
So moved.
seconded?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and have a good evening.